Meeting to order. We do have a quorum. I am going to ask everybody in attendance to stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm going to welcome everybody who's online. We've got 2 already joining us, and then we do have some of our incredible staff in the audience. Welcome to the monthly meeting. I am now going to go ahead and ask that you all join me in reciting first the mission, following directly into the vision. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student. The vision: every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for successful transition to the next stage of life. Perfect. I will now entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Second.
Oh, sorry. I need a second. Okay, thank you. Motion has been made and I have a second from Trustee Kirkman. All in favor?
Aye.
I will now entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we go to executive session per Idaho Code 74206 1B, D, and F. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student. D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code. F, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigations or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement.
Second, roll call vote.
Chair Taylor?
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman?
Aye.
Trustee Sue?
Aye.
Trustee Benton?
Aye.
Okay, we are now going to move into executive session to return for our regularly scheduled meeting at 6 p.m.
What are you guys doing here?
It is 6 p.m. and we are back in public session. So I will re-welcome everybody. And we are super excited tonight to move into our spotlight. We are going to welcome Miss Teen Idaho, Dr. Russell.
Yeah, Chair Taylor, trustees, I had the opportunity of meeting Brecklin this summer, her and her father, and was just really impressed with her. I thought she's a great example of just some of the amazing students that we have here. So she's got some really neat things that she's going to share that she's been working on. And I know Miss Stone will come up and share that. And this.
Welcome, Mrs. Stone.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, trustees, Dr. Russell, and guests. My name is Jessica Stone, and I have been fortunate to be part of the Skyview family for the last 4 years. In that time, I have met and worked with some amazing students and staff and learned firsthand why Skyview has earned a reputation of excellence. I'm especially pleased to be here tonight to talk about and introduce one of our outstanding seniors. She's an author, a dancer, she's Miss Idaho's teen, and she's a Skyview Hawk, Brecklin Pancari. Before she tells you about those accomplishments, Dr. Cindy Cook would like to share a little bit of her impact that she's had.
Thank you, Ms. Stone.
Welcome,
Good
Mrs. Cook.
evening. Good evening, Chairman Taylor and trustees. If you haven't met me yet, you'll find out that special ed is like, that's my jam. That's what I do. So that's probably good that that's my job, right? And so that's why I'm so excited that we were able to meet Brecklin. As you know, she's Miss Teen Idaho. And so within that, she gets to have like a platform and a voice. And what she's chosen to do with that is truly amazing. And it's really impactful for students with disabilities, adults and students without disabilities, because it's about awareness and inclusion. And she is just amazing. And to me, it's just a really good example of the excellent students and people that come out of the Nampa School District and the opportunities they have, and just what one person's voice can just make such a difference. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to her, but I am going to pass around a couple copies of her book that you can look at while she's speaking. So Ms. Brecklin, it's up to you.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to thank them for introducing me, and I also want to thank you guys for taking time out of your meeting to come and listen. You want to pull my PowerPoint? Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a little introduction. I know they already did introduce me, but I was born in June, and I've been in Nampa School District kid my whole life. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so I've been a dancer my whole life since I was 3 years old. Because of this, I've been able to get lots of opportunities from it and lots of new experiences. This actually brought up an experience being able to compete in the Miss Idaho's teen pageant. So I was competing at a competition at Nampa High School where one of the judges is actually the board member. She runs the pageant. And she reached out to me about 3 months after I competed and said, I can't get you off my mind. Please come compete. We think you'd be a great fit. I decided, why not? Because I could earn scholarship money and it'd be something super cool and fun to try out. So I did it, and obviously I won. Next slide. So that pageant was held June 22nd in Idaho Falls at the Colonial Theater. It was a day that truly changed my life and has brought all of this excitement up. Because I won, I get to go to Miss America's Teen in January. I'll get to compete against 50 other delegates for the role of Miss America's Teen, which is super exciting. There are some different scoring and different aspects that go into pageants. So I have a private interview with a judges panel that's usually 5 to 10 judges. And I get to tell them more about my CSI. I basically just get to tell them who I am and get to meet them. That's worth 30% of your overall score. Then you have your fitness routine, which is 20%, and you'll do a little fitness routine. You'll work out on stage, and then you get to walk and pose for them. And then you'll do your talent, which is, again, 20% of your score. It's something that you feel super comfortable and confident in that you've been doing for a long time. From there, you have evening wear, which is another 20% of your score. And it's something super cool because you get to show off who you are and how elegant you can be on stage. And then you have your onstage question, which is just 10 points, 10% of your score, which is helpful because it's not as stressful since you never know and you have to answer a question in front of a live audience. So they'll ask you a question about your community service initiative that they want to pretty much just dig deeper and get more out of you in front of an audience and see how you'll react. And then from there, you'll turn around and see a word on the screen that you'll have to talk about, which is kind of stressful, but it is only 10% of the score, so it's okay. So I've kind of been talking about a community service initiative. When I was trying to find what I wanted to do for mine, I took dance because obviously I've been dancing forever and I'm super passionate about it. And then I took my best friend. So growing up, my best friend had special needs and I never understood why she got treated differently. I just knew that she did, and it was heartbreaking when she would get made fun of. So I wanted to find a program where I could bring them together. I could bring dance and special needs children together so that everyone could feel included and cared for. Through that, I did not find one I liked. I did find plenty of different programs with sports, like Game Changers of Idaho. I've been volunteering with them, and they're awesome. But because I couldn't find a dance one, I decided to make my own. So I made my own nonprofit called Special Steps. We just want everyone to come where they can thrive, celebrate their unique abilities, and the joy of acceptance and belonging. I had my first camp a few weeks before the pageant, which was super fun because I got to go tell the judges how it went and everything I was planning for the future. It was a little bit smaller of students, but it has grown, and it was exciting to see how much the community already was invested in this. We just had our most recent camp last Saturday. We had 7 volunteers and 11 people show up, which was super exciting. The growth is insane and super exciting. We actually just held it at Endeavor Elementary School, which was super fun. I've been doing it just inside my dance studio, and we needed a bigger space. So it was super cool that I was able to use a Nampa School District gym for that. So this message I knew wouldn't be able to reach as many people as I wanted it to just by these free dance camps. So I wanted to go read books to the younger generation of students at elementary schools just to teach inclusion and kindness. Through this, I wanted to read a book, like I just said, but I couldn't find one that I absolutely loved and knew that I could really get the message across of the multiple things I wanted to. There's tons of great options, but I decided to write my own since I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and get my message across perfectly in the way that I wanted to and could. So I wrote a book. You guys saw it, Darla and Belle Becoming Best Friends. I started with the different sketches of ideas, and I decided that I wanted to go off of the storyline of me and my best friend. Obviously, she doesn't have green skin, so I changed it a little bit so that it'd be easier for elementary students to understand. I got it edited and revised from a lot of people, which was super fun. I got it published September 9th. And I've already sold, I know it says almost, but I already sold over 100 copies. And all of those proceeds go back to my nonprofit, which is super exciting. I have read it to multiple elementary schools so far, and I actually am reading to Lake Ridge this week, which is super exciting. So I want Special Steps to grow into all of the 50 states. I want to show everyone how important this is. So through that, I'm going to do ambassador programs. So I'm going to get my dance camps out to multiple states with different ambassador programs. So as I leave for college and as my friends leave for college, they're hopefully going to start their own chapters in each of their states to help it grow. And then same with my book, I'm hoping that people will start to read it and I reach out to me to read it, which would be super fun. And all proceeds of my merch, affiliate links, and my book do go back to my nonprofit, which is super exciting. Okay, thank you guys all so much for your time. Does anyone have any questions?
First,
Sorry.
Doesn't everybody want to clap? Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to start by saying bravo, and now Trustee Ben.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about your dance camps. And I just am curious, are you planning to partner or have you thought about partnering with Open Arms Dance Project in Boise?
No,
Who
I
does-
haven't thought about that, but now I will. Now it's gonna be something in my brain. I'll think about that.
Yeah, have you
sure.
heard about them? Do you know about them?
No, I haven't.
So they do inclusive dance and it's like all ages and ability levels, and it's kind of a cool project. And so that's the first connection that I thought of. And then where did you go through to do your publishing for your book?
Amazon. So yeah, so they published it all for us. We just sent it all in and got it approved, which is super fun.
Cool.
And
Who
awesome.
did the illustrations?
We had a girl from Brazil do them. So it was her first book. So it's super exciting because both of our
Wow.
first books
Really cool.
got done together.
How did you meet your best friend?
She was just a family friend. I don't know. Just our parents were friends, and then we
You
grew
just
up
knew
that
her your
way.
whole
Yeah.
life. She was like, she magically appeared for
Yeah,
you as
she
a
just
best
randomly
friend.
was my best friend.
I love it. I love it. Trustees, any other questions?
Great.
Yeah.
No, I just wish she had a little bit more gumption and I wish she had a little
Yeah.
bit more
More drive.
vision.
No,
that
no.
kind of thing. No, it's awesome. It just fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. It's really such a privilege when we see just the success of our students. Really, the talent that we have in here, that we have in Nampa is just incredible. Thank you for highlighting it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in Nampa. And you will do great things. You already are.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for coming. And if there is ever a way that we can help highlight you besides spotlighting you on initiatives like tonight, please feel free to email our board.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
When is Miss America Teen again?
It's the beginning of January.
Do they televise that?
Yes.
ESPN? 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that?
It is
We'll find
televised,
out.
but yeah.
Let us know.
Clerk
If you-
Lamont.
if
I
you
will.
find out, let us know.
I'll
Can
let them
you-
know.
Can you email us really quick that date to the entire board, just really quick, so we all have it saved? Or after, what was the date of it?
It's the beginning of January.
The Miss America.
Yeah, just so it's on our radar.
I will get it on your calendar.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, I think we should clap one more time. All right, trustees, we now have a program spotlight guest speaker, Matt Todd, and he is the legislative PTA rep. Is that correct? Okay, Mr. Todd.
I do not, I don't know how I'm going to follow that,
No,
but I will do,
Yeah.
do my best. I haven't
nothing.
written any books, let alone multiple, and I've never collaborated with anybody in Brazil, so that's a thing. But I am here today. Thank you for having me, Chairwoman Taylor, trustees, superintendent. I am the state PTA legislative representative. I have a podcast called the Ranch Podcast, and I am also a father of 3 children in public ed in West Ada. I'm here because of my connections with the podcast, talking to representatives, law enforcement, and school leaders, I was able to identify a real serious hole in public education at the middle to end of 2023. The position that we're all in with public education is predominantly one of integrating technology at a breakneck speed, figuring out what we can do with cost savings, figuring out what we can do with upscaling the benefits and skills of our teachers, all kinds of wonderful things that we know we can do with technology, and God bless it. But with that comes a lot of unintended consequences that we're starting to see the fallout of. Now, what I identified in 2023 is a collection of different hands that were not talking to each other. And that ranges from Ada County Sheriff, Meridian police officers, all of these different law enforcement agencies that were not communicating with actual school members or school leaders in the West Ada School District. What has happened is that people understand that the technology we pass out, and this is not just Nampa, not just West Ada, this is nationally, but the technology that we pass out is not 100% safe. It's very safe. Schools go to work every single day to make it as safe as possible, but it's not 100% safe, as we all know. Now, this is generally the domain of annoyance. People find out that kids are playing video games, or, as one of my children was watching Odd Squad in school on PBS Kids. But if you actually talk to law enforcement agents, they say, no, that's not the problem. The problem gets much, much worse, as horrible as you can imagine. And they know this. And in fact, if you called, for instance, West Ada Sheriff right now, you'd find out that there is school issued technology in their evidence locker currently in really, really bad cases. The problem is we can't remove the tech. And that's, be that as it may, like, we all have our different opinions about tech in school, but we're not parking this car back in the garage. The tech is here for the foreseeable future. So how do we deal with that? One of the prevailing issues that has yet to be addressed is that we have removed parents from the safety protocol with technology, predominantly because the parents don't know what kids are doing. They don't know what to look for. They don't understand the technology. They don't know the holes in the monitoring systems, all of these things. Because of that, we need to reinsert parents in. So I'm here with an actual solution to the problem. So working with SRO Dave Gomez, who's a nationally recognized SRO. I met him at the end of 2023. We started on this journey together to say, okay, what could we do to actually reinsert parents into the safety equation? You can do dangerous stuff with kids. You can transport kids from a school to a zoo on a bus that you know is dangerous. Fine, you just have parents understand the liability, understand the risk, they sign a waiver, they move on. What could we do to meaningfully educate and integrate parents back into the tech safety world with their children so that schools, public schools all across Idaho and the nation, but I'm focusing on Idaho, could obviously distribute technology and have a high probability that parents would be able to participate in protecting their children. So this is what we've done. We made an online platform program that is being rolled out in districts as we speak. It is parent facing. This is not a child facing program. We are not trying to put the safety of children in the children's hands. It is our responsibility, the adults in the room, and obviously the school district distributing this technology. The program focuses on 4 key things. And by the way, this program is video-based because everybody likes watching videos on their phones. You can literally watch it while you're the state PTA president, Alexis Morgan. We were presenting to the state superintendent, Idaho School Boards Association, safety officers yesterday. And she said, look, I watched the entire 4-part series while doing my makeup, doing my hair, and brushing my teeth in the morning. It is that easy to consume. The focus of the program is, 1, meaningfully educate parents about the actual risks of technology. It is not just video games. It's not just chatting with friends when you shouldn't be. It's the real deal. These are pieces of technology that can lead to very, very, very bad things. Articulate that. Help them understand that the danger of social media, danger of technology is not just social media. It's not one app. It's not a collection of apps. It's a function, right? 2-way communication. That is the thing that we need to help parents understand. Anything with 2-way communication, that could be the Fitbit app, that could be the Bible app, that could be Google Meets. Eric Phillips from Caldwell School District caught some of their students using school-issued technology, using Google Meets, doing very, very bad things. So this is not an app that we would anticipate, hey, we need to restrict access to Google Meets. That's not what we would do when issuing this technology. Articulate that that's the issue. It's a function. Help parents understand what the actual fundamental mechanics are of these, and then give them best practices to prevent any damage coming from their kids. This is not an accusatory program. This is not a program advocating for removing technology from public schools. This is a program that says, hey, we find ourselves in this position. It's none of our individual faults. Technology is here to stay in education. We want to bring the parents in so when the technology goes home with their children, they can keep their children safe. And we, the public, acknowledge that this technology is not 100% safe. We go to work every day, like I've said, to make it safe, but it's not 100% safe. And that's what the program we've developed does. It's an online program that can be distributed with a district-wide login. So for instance, the Nampa login is in fact Nampa with a capital M, username and password. Parents can watch the videos. They get education. It is nothing like there's nothing like it across the state, including the ICAC coalition, which we worked with in order to create the program. There's just nothing like it. And this has a couple really core pieces. 1, it does what we should do, which is bring parents back into the safety paradigm. And 2, it helps people understand that, hey, these things are not going to be safe. They're never were any internet-based technology is not ever going to be safe as far as we can tell. And we want you to know that and treat this technology as such. Use it effectively, just like we would all use very sharp Japanese knives or 5,000-pound steel missiles going 75 down the freeway. We use dangerous things, but we use them safely and effectively. So that's what I'm coming here to present to you. I'm not looking for anything from you. I'm not looking for money. We are offering this program to the state of Idaho for free. We are coupling it with a bill that will hopefully get passed this coming legislative session that the ISB reviewed, Superintendent Critchfield reviewed. Lots of legislators have reviewed. The idea is that if you are a public school district and you are going to distribute technology, you have an obligation to present safety education material to parents. They are not required to watch it. They are required to acknowledge receipt of it. But the idea is that, hey, the school districts in Idaho are going to have all the resources they need to bring Idaho parents into the safety equation again, and thus keep Idaho students safe. That's what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm sorry, I know I just like dumped on you for 10 minutes. So questions?
So trustees, just so full disclosure, Mr. Todd and I made acquaintance about 3 weeks ago, and he presented very similar to what you're saying to me as well. In the past few years during my term, I think this question has come up a lot. The fact that this was parent facing and really focused on just educating parents about two-way communication through technology, I think is something that I've heard a lot from the community. Love that so many other districts are on board, wanted him to present to you guys so that we could all have a robust conversation or consider bringing this in. It is free for our parents. Very easy, like he said, to view, read, log into, very comprehensive, very informative as well. And it really is just about helping parents bridge that gap when a parent, I think we see this all the time, disappearing messages in Snapchat, things like that. So it just gives parents more education about what tech does, because I agree with Mr. Todd. We can't go back. We understand how important tech is. I think this just really helps parents to understand how tech should be monitored. Perfect. Questions, Trustee Benz?
Yeah, so then I guess I'm assuming that there's a little bit more detail to come about what is entailed in this.
So he can share it, but I also believe that couldn't we have Tyler pull up your
Yes,
website?
absolutely.
Yep.
If you just go to fortifyyourkids.com, you can pull up the website.
Okay.
So,
Because
yes.
I just have a couple of questions. So is this just an education piece? So saying this is how the technology works, this is what you can be on the lookout for, or is this much more of a monitoring software?
This is not a
or-
monitoring software.
Okay.
This is education for parents.
Okay.
For instance, do you really need internet in your house 24 hours a day? Right?
Well.
It would be important if you're worried about what kids do when you go to sleep, if they have access to technology. Why have Wi-Fi on 24 hours a day? Why not have a router on a timer that goes off at 10 p.m.? What are you really doing after 10 p.m.? You don't have to do this, but that is one of the practices, right? There are a number of practices that we bring to light that, hey, these are practical, fundamental things that you can do tonight, today, right now to make your house safer. Another one is storing all technology in one place. How about collecting all of your old, like everybody has an iPhone 1, 2, 5, whatever, sitting around. You can collect those things. Those are not safe devices. The educational program is not just focused on school technology. It is focused on all technology, but we do expressly talk about school technology in there as well to help parents understand that although, again, school tech generally has monitoring devices on it, these are insufficient and imperfect. And for instance, my 7th grader on the way to school, I drive him to school every day. He says, hey, Dad, look, I got to tell you something. I can look up any YouTube video I want and watch it. I'm like, okay, how do you do that? Because we have Go Guardian. Show me. He goes to YouTube, puts in I think he really likes Star Wars, puts in a Star Wars video game, the video, blurs it out. Go Guardian's like, nah, you can't watch that. Fine. Copies the URL, goes to PowerPoint, insert URL, inserts it, starts playing instantaneously. So my 7th grader, who's not like super crazy tech savvy because we took all the tech away from him, he knows how to get around all of these things. Educating parents and helping them understand, hey, there are back doors to these programs that are not intentionally there. The developers may not know, but like the PowerPoint person is not talking to the YouTube person, is not talking to the Go Guardian person. So there are these things that kids can pit against each other. Parents need to be educated with that. When they are educated with this, and again, this is education facing the parents, they will figure out how to use this and monitor this device and keep the device safe in their house the best way for them. But the first step is to say, hey, this is not safe. Never was safe. We're making it as safe as possible, but we want you to be on board with us. We want to bring parents in and have a better collaboration with them with the technology that we, the school district, are giving their children.
Okay, so it's simply educational.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was a very long answer to a very short
Okay.
question. My apologies.
Trustees, other questions? I just shared the website with you guys to the entire board. Unfortunately, it comes up on the phone, but blocked through.
Ironically, it's
yeah.
blocked by.
Ironically
Yes.
blocked, but yes.
And again, that was a question that some administrators in Valley View had. And again, the emphasis is this is not intended for school tech. This is not intended for school Wi-Fi. This is for parents. You can pull it up on your phone. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yep.
So, sorry, but could you clarify then? You had mentioned something about it would require, is it the bill that you were discussing that would require that districts provide this and then parents acknowledge receipt of this?
That's
You
correct.
get something, okay.
That's correct. So the bill states that, hey, If you are a public school district or school in Idaho and you are distributing technology, you have to provide meaningful education to parents that does the 4 things I mentioned. Now, you can, Nampa School District, you can make your own as long as it checks the boxes, or you can use, again, we are providing this to the State Department of Education to be rolled out and piloted. They're planning on doing about 50 schools in the next 30 days or so. But you can yourself make your own, or you can use the one provided by the state. The idea would be then you provide this to parents. Parents are not required to watch it in order to receive school technology, but they are required to acknowledge that you provided educational safety material that pertains to the school tech.
Which we already do now. I mean, even at the beginning of the school, when students participate in sporting activities and things like that, parents go to a informational seminar. I attended one at Columbia with my kids. They talk about the concussion and all that other kind of stuff, and respectful and bullying and all that. I'm on board with this, with the law. I'm not a big advocate of more laws and whatnot, but look, driver's education. When kids get a driver's license, parents have to sign off on that. That's in the statute. I think we're at a time and place in society where we do need a little bit more teeth, at least to get it in front of the parent. And
Yes.
then let the parent acknowledge if they received it, whether they act on that or not.
It's up to them. Yeah, I really
In
love.
fact, I think we ought to, I'm gonna be a little bit bold here, but I think we even ought to look at that and be a little bit proactive in this district, and maybe even have a policy and not wait for the legislature.
Well, I maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but I do believe that when you're signing the registration form, you have to acknowledge these are the acceptable use parameters of the school technology.
Yeah, but
and all
there's
that
no
stuff.
information provided to the parent
The meaning.
proactively from the district about the pitfalls of technology, like this gentleman was talking about here.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a waiver and say, I accept the risk and so, but there's no proactive education being provided to the parent.
Hey, be careful about this. Warning label, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, no,
Careful,
yeah.
hold on, no.
No, I love it because that's what I loved about Mr. Todd's presentation, you guys. It was the meaningful education of parents. I agree. It's not that I don't think that we have waivers or we do our very best. And I would also agree. I believe that our staff shows up every single day to make sure that kids are safe. And my faith for our staff grows and grows and grows and grows the longer I'm in this position. What I love about what you presented, and trustees, I think we would have time to review it, is that this really dives deep into what parents just don't know. And I think that that's what was really incredible, is that I do think that there is a gap for a lot of parents because they don't spend time on the apps that their children do. They don't review something. They're like, oh, this is educational. Go ahead, take it, go into your room. And I just don't think that sometimes that those, we just didn't grow up the same way. Whereas my kids can do things on the computer. Yeah, it's just insane. Yes.
Right.
Trustee Benz.
Oh, no, I was just along the lines of what Trustee Kirkman was saying. If these are simply videos or video links, couldn't we embed it into our form? Like when you're technology, this
Somehow,
technology.
So,
I
yeah,
just think
so
we ought to
many-
move in that direction.
Yes, so many ways. I just think that we needed to have Mr. Todd, right? Obviously, it's not a decision I can make on my own.
Right.
Mr. Todd needed to present to us. We had this opportunity, and being in this position the last almost 3 years, this comes up a lot. And I've had parents come to me based on devices and conversations had on devices. And again,
Well, we were
Right.
just waiting for you to get it all.
yeah.
Hey,
put
listen,
together.
man,
And
I
then
put
provide
it
to
together
us
as
for
fast as I
free.
could.
And then
Um,
provide it for free.
If I may, and I apologize for interrupting, if I may address what you were saying, most schools have some form of way when you're collecting the actual piece of technology.
Mhm.
They also have accepted uses.
Mhm.
The accepted uses is putting the safety of children in the hands of children.
The children.
That is the wrong approach. It doesn't matter if you're like, well, your 12-year-old got really, really hurt by this, but they were out of the terms of use, right? That's irrelevant. What we're talking about is parents that do not know the risks. They do not know how these devices unintentionally can be used to hurt kids. And that's just the reality. And without informing them in a meaningful manner, I mean, the videos that you will consume go quickly. I don't talk this fast in them, trust me, but the videos are very chock full of information, but the 4 videos collectively are 25 minutes. That is not something you can put in an email. It is not something that you can just pass out a flyer. It is also not something that would be an effective distribution for in-person community building. Now, I love that, don't mind presenting to people. As I told Chairwoman Taylor, I'd be happy to come out and do in-person presentations to parent groups. But if we just take West Ada as a quick example, they have the Save My Family collection, group come by and do a collection of presentations to the district. That's a 40,000 person district. They show up 8 times. There are about 100 people max at these presentations, many husband and wife groups, many children as well. So you're hitting about 50 families total, 8 times. That's 400 people out of 40,000. You get nailing 1%. And by the way, if I love it and I go home and try to tell my neighbor, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was the best thing since sliced bread. You got to check this out because Johnny, blah, blah, blah. When do they come back? Never. They're gone. They're at some other part. You got to drive 45 minutes to see them. And by the way, you have to be there at 7:30 on a Thursday at that gym that doesn't have air conditioning. It is not an effective means of communication. There needs to be a mechanism to educate, meaningfully address these problems that is decoupled from geographic and temporal proximity. It has to be something they can watch and consume anywhere, that is easy and a piece of cake. And that's what we've made.
And so what, another piece of clarification, I'm sure we'll have time to digest this and think about it if we want to take action at another time.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
But you had mentioned that so it's blocked by the district, right? So you can't access it on a district device. If we're making this available to parents, and parents don't have devices sometimes. I know I have kids whose parents, their cell phones only text. They can't take calls, you know? And so the district issued device is the only device available.
No, they have there's
Yeah.
an app that you can get on your phone, right?
We don't have an app at this time, but if that is a concern for you, I'm absolutely sure we could actually provide you with the videos to be, delivered under a very specific circumstances where it's like, okay, these 100 parents don't actually have tech. If that's the case, then I'm sure we could figure out a way around
Yeah.
that with the school-based sites.
So, I mean, I think education's a beautiful thing, and that's the business that we're in. And so more education doesn't hurt.
I really love that this educates parents. I really do. I believe in the meaningful education of parents. I believe it's our job. And we see this all the time. And what I love is that this also educates, not just about school tech, but again, that two-way communication, those apps like Snapchat where those conversations just disappear. I just don't think sometimes parents understand how dangerous that can truly be for a child who's unmonitored and somebody who is trying to use that two-way communication app. So I love this. Again, we don't have to make a decision tonight, trustees. Do we just want to commit to watching these and then having this discussion at our next meeting?
Sure.
Sure.
Does that work for everybody? Dr. Russell, does that work for you as well? Perfect. Do we have any more questions?
We're gonna have to get Tyler to unblock our computer.
Yeah. One additional thing that I do want to point out, in collaborating with different school districts, there are requests for customized videos, which we can accommodate. So I'm in fact meeting with Lieutenant Sean Harper tomorrow to do a video that will be put up on the website about school lockdowns. Another superintendent did request a video specific to social media and human trafficking. We already have a longer format conversation with a former detective out of Boise on the site, but we are also going to add a small kind of quick one, just 2-3 minutes that people can consume and understand that there are really dark ways that these things go really quickly. So
You
there
also
is
have-
customization.
A comprehensive video on vaping as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we have more videos coming on, but to that end, if there's something where it's like, gosh, I like this, but could we also get one more like this? We almost certainly can accommodate you as well.
And again, trustees, I want to remind everybody, this is parent facing. So this isn't about adopting curriculum. This is really just about helping to meaningfully educate our parents on the dangers of some of these things. And the vaping video was incredible.
Oh, thank you for watching.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Todd. Thank you for
very
your
much.
time. And we will be in touch. If there are more questions for next meeting, would you be willing to attend our next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. And I will also make sure that I send over to the board email login so that you guys can obviously peruse it, check it out, beat it up, give me any feedback you want.
Please do. And to make sure that happens this evening, perfect. Clerk will
Wow,
not.
that never works with my kids when I.
Yeah, just done. Did you like that? Done.
That's great. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mr. Todd.
Have a good night.
Just
Perfect.
give it to Tyler.
All right. So we are now going to go into the comment portion of our meeting. We
If you-
are going to.
Hold on just a second.
Go
If
for
you need to leave, you can go ahead and leave. I didn't.
Their coaches asked to wait to see if Skyview is getting approved to go to nationals.
Oh,
That's what
Okay, sorry. Sorry about that.
You can stay as long as you
Oh,
would
yeah, you
like.
can
I don't,
stay
yeah,
too
I don't know.
if you want.
Yeah.
Like everybody
You
out
can
here.
stay
Most
here
people don't.
forever. If you would like to stay.
We're just used to everybody leaving.
It's great. It's like extra points for you. Extra points for us too, because those boots are killing it. Okay, so from there, we're going to go into the comment portion of our agenda. If we do have anybody here for public comment, I just always like to take the opportunity right now to let you know to please sign up in the hallway. We will go through the NEA comments and then trustee comments first, but then we will grab that sheet and we will do public comment. All right? So at this point in time, we will hear from the NEA. Mr. Coffey?
Good evening. Two topics that I want to talk to you about. First is the 4-day week update, or really changes update, and the other is the 23-24 reopener negotiation update. Lots of transition happening in the schools, as I'm sure you all know and imagine and envisioned. I don't have like official information. We didn't do a survey or a poll or anything. So my knowledge is from talking to people, informally. At the elementary level, the biggest change for them, because they were already on trimesters, of course, but the biggest change for them is really trying to compress 5 days of instruction into 4 days. Bigger than that, though, is trying to compress 5 days worth of meetings into 4 days. So we eliminated 20% of the days in which you could have a meeting, but it seems like none of the meetings have gone away. And in fact, with the increased focus on HRS, highly reliable schools, PLT work and all of that, there seems like there's more meetings actually happening, yet there's less time to do them. And that is having a big negative impact right now in elementary. Teachers want to be in their classrooms with their students providing instruction. They don't want to be sitting in meetings. And so that's a real challenge. So that's, I think, a wrinkle that we need to definitely spend time ironing out. I don't have any great answers for you at the moment, though. Maybe we could use technology to actually think about what a meeting needs to consist of, what participating in a meeting might consist of. Sorry, I heard a breath.
No, I have a clarifying question, if that's
Of course.
okay.
It is, or we can wait till his comments are done. I also have questions. I thought maybe we would get through his comments and then, perfect.
At the secondary level, lots of changes for many teachers, new students, new buildings, new staff. And so that's true at elementary as well. But middle school, trying to blend in to a new environment is very difficult in the best of circumstances. And a similar thing with them, everything's trying to be done in 4 days where it used to be 5. At the high school level where I reside, the bigger change, quite frankly, for teachers has been the going off the AB block schedule and having a straight every day schedule. So we have a straight 6 every day. And that extra day, however a lesson might have gone on a day, you always had a whole nother day to get ready. Well, now, if you don't have that figured out before you go home that night, you're there the next day kind of winging it. And so that's a real challenge to adjust to that rhythm. And I think that's actually having a bigger impact than the 4-day. Not all teachers are enjoying the 4-day as much as I hope they would and thought that they would. Some are not quite able to access it yet because, again, of all the challenges of the changed flow from the schedule. They're working on those Fridays or they're working on Sunday, whereas maybe they weren't before. Students at the high school level generally pretty happy. The weekend starts Thursday at 3:36. They don't wait till Friday morning for the weekend to start. And so generally pretty happy. I think they're getting, recovering on some sleep, having some good family time, and all of the students I pulled at Nampa anyway are generally pretty happy. The second topic is about the 2024 reopener. My understanding is that there was some, hubbub on Facebook, which is a place I don't go. And it was kind of interesting to me that people thought that the 2024, was a mistake. Get your dates right or whatever, people. It's funny that that's what they expect of us, I guess. But we had the meeting last night, and it was, I guess I'd say, as bad as I thought it was going to be. I guess maybe I felt like I should maybe just give a brief synopsis of why I say that. the story of this $4.5 million that the district received in May and June of this year of supplemental allocation money goes back to the 2023 legislature, where the governor very loudly and boldly said he's the education governor, and he committed to providing additional funding in various ways. One of those ways was $300 million or so specifically for certificated employees, which is mostly teachers, but not teachers, nurses, counselors, all certificated folks. The governor or the legislature approved that, and when the State Department went to then go and disperse it, they discovered that they actually were only going to disperse half of it. If you go and Google governor's raise, 6359 is the magic number. That's what he said. Every teacher is going to get a pay raise of 6359. Well, we were able to get $3,000 and change into our salary schedule, half of it. As soon as the legislative session was over, before the ink was even dry on the sine die, there was discussion about how do we get the rest of the money. This was not intended. We didn't mean to allocate 300, only give out 150 million. How do we fix this? And at every level, there was discussion and really confidence about how we're going to get that money. We were in the middle of negotiating the 2024 contract when that happened. So we put in a provision, hoping, quite frankly, expecting there would be some money to reopen the contract if and when that additional money came in. Lo and behold, it did, to the tune of $4.5 million in a year when there were no outstanding expenses on the budget. You came in good, in the budget, in the black. So of course we thought, great, we get to reopen, we'll at least get some of it. And that has not been the case. The story has been, of course, long and arduous to even get you to reopen the contract, which you just did last month. So we had our first meeting just yesterday. Scheduling things, as I said, it's difficult, 20% fewer days to do that. So we had a meeting. There was lots of yelling, some crying. That was just me. But to me, the way I want to sum that up is Dr. Russell actually made a comment that was the saddest comment of all to me, which was that at the time that this money was all, was acknowledged was going to be coming, not one administrator in the state thought this money was going to the teachers. And apparently not one board either thought this money was going to the teachers. And that is a sad state of affairs. What a sad state we live in, that nobody in the state would honor, respect, show appreciation for their certificated staff by giving them any of that money that was originally allocated for them exclusively. And the fact that the team gathered yesterday didn't even have authorization to even discuss any kind of real offer still is very sad and difficult to bear, quite frankly. So I would really encourage you to think about what you're doing with that money and to understand where it came from, to understand why it wasn't random that we had a reopener to begin with. It was all on purpose and intentional. And to not even discuss giving any amount of $4.5 million free and clear dollars. It's pretty shocking and upsetting and despairing, quite frankly. So those are my comments.
Trustees, any questions for Mr. Coffey?
I have a couple of questions. Sure. Oh, actually, 3 questions. But 2 of them kind of go together. So first question, you mentioned meetings at the elementary level, right? What types of meetings are these? Are these mandatory meetings? So is this directed time, additional directed time in the buildings? Are the teachers not getting the non-directed hours that were part of the contract? Is this training, because I know we had a new ELA curriculum adopted this year. Is this training on how to use this new curriculum? What kind of meetings are we talking about for elementary?
Yeah, if you could just keep going on that list, and I can just say all of the above, quite frankly. Again, elementary, all educators, elementary in particular, have a lot of meetings that some of them are required. Some of them, they say that they're required, but is it really required? So, some examples, I guess, if you're looking for, in elementary, that used to be that they reserved Wednesdays for their IEP meetings, for instance. So they would just try and blast out all their IEPs every Wednesday. which meant that the special ed staff then could have, 4 days a week to actually be providing that special ed instruction. Well, now that we only have 4 days of school, can't really do that. Can't have those meetings on Fridays either because, getting staff available and all that is going to be difficult. So they're having to just fold in all of their IEP meetings into 4 days wherever they can, which just disrupted their flow. So that's one example.
So are you saying that staff's not in buildings on the Fridays that they're supposed to be available? Is that the conversation that we are having right now?
No, I'm
Then
not
what
sure.
is the conversation we are having? So you guys, when we did the contract and we made the decision to change days, there are Fridays. So I keep hearing you say we have condensed everything into 4 days. We are student active 4 days. We have a 5th day where teachers are to be in the building. Is that not occurring?
Though it definitely is occurring, but they're not having IEP meetings on those days because the student has to be
Has to
there
be there.
generally, and you need multiple staff people to be there. You need an administrator to be there. And on those Fridays, so to another part of your question, the directed time is directed. And so many administrators are very aggressive about that. And the idea that the only kind of managing is micromanaging. And the other thing is it's different across buildings. And that's kind of a feature of Nampa is that you might have as a staff person, you might have a totally different experience at one building versus another building.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. So I'm
Yeah.
totally understanding because you keep saying it's
I know.
consolidated into 4 days, and I really want to understand where this is going. So then there's no other time to have the IEP meeting, even though we have an extended day.
The issue is there are IEP meetings now all the time. So at any given moment of any given day, there might be an IEP meeting, and a gen ed teacher needs to be present in that meeting. So now the gen ed teacher is pulled out of their class to sit in an hour and a half long meeting at any random time.
And you're saying, is this, it's so general. It was the same thing with the nursing comments. And then I had to search out and talk to nurses, and I find a nurse that you talked to like 8 months ago who like, now we're getting this information. This is so general. It either has to be specific so that action can be taken or requests can be made. But when you get up here and you make very bold generalizations, it is so difficult to follow to know what we are looking for.
Especially what I'm thinking of is it almost sounds like buyer's remorse now. Because
Yeah.
most of the teachers, if I'm not mistaken, the majority of the teachers wanted to go to a 4-day week
Yeah.
because of the extra time that they would have to plan. Weren't these meetings still happening last year when we were on a 5-day student contact week? So now that we're at a 4-day student contact week, in general, because most of the teachers and a lot of the parents wanted this, now it seems like, well, now we have all of this condensed. It almost seems like buyer's remorse.
That was not my intention to convey that.
But that's
at
what it
all.
sounds like.
Yeah,
When you come
it's-
with these generalized, these
to me,
very
the issue-
general
well,
comments.
And
The-
is it 2? Did you talk to 2 people? If it's a 60-40 split, did you talk to 6 people who love it and 4 people that don't like it? You got to get up here to be really specific, or it's just general spewing of things that we can't follow that can turn into other things. And I don't care what Facebook says. Have you ever read about me on Facebook?
But being a representative
Correct.
of the the Nampa
NEA.
Education Association, I'm assuming that you're speaking for the majority of teachers. So that's, when you make these statements, that's what I'm thinking. And now the majority of the teachers want to go to a 4-day week. Now they don't want a 4-day week because they have all these meetings, it's condensed. We went from a block schedule to a trimester. I mean, again, like Trustee Chair Taylor was saying, these are very generalized comments. Are they representative of the teachers? Because you said now a lot of the teachers don't like the 4-day week. We're only 2 months into the school year.
I don't agree that there's any buyer's remorse. I think it's too early to tell. We're still kicking the tires, to use that analogy. The other issue is the car's not driving itself. So it's sort of like you hired a limo service, and the limo maybe is great, but your driver sucks.
Who's the driver in this scenario?
Well, so 2 things. One, you don't like when I name names. So I don't want to get up here and start talking about specific building administrators.
So I don't
Okay,
think that you really
so-
can. But I do
Well-
need ratios. Is it one school? Is it 17 schools? Is it 4 schools?
The other issue is doesn't work like that. It's a monolith. You know, you could go to every school, have a heart-to-heart person with every one of them, there's 35 or whatever in the elementary. You might get 35 different answers.
Yeah.
They're gonna like some things about it, not other things about it. So I'm not trying to paint some picture that's terrible. What I'm saying is, I think the way we're doing it is creating some problems that weren't anticipated. And it's creating some difficulty.
But
The other
it's,
thing is that if I could just push back on something you said too, I don't want to give you all specifics. You're the board. You're at a governance level. I'm not expecting you to do anything specific about it. You have an entire team of professionals who work for you, who we also communicate with. I'm just like, we're trying to give you a sense of what I'm hearing from people, which is not from everybody. We don't actually have a majority of certificated folks who are members of the association. Otherwise, you would have to do the blue cards. You know, so there's
Well,
some
that's
issues.
based on the blue cards to reopen the negotiation.
But when I
about the
stand
money
up
you're
here, I'm
talking
not talking about, when I give you sense of like the 4-day thing or whatever, that's not bargaining. So I don't represent the bargaining unit in that context, other than in negotiations, which when I'm just giving you my comments, that's not what I'm doing.
Right, but what I'm saying though, as the president of the NEA, and you stand up and make these comments, that's the assumption, is that you are standing up representing the NEA, which is a majority of the certificated the teachers, based on the blue card and the contract and things like that. That's just the logical line that I see. I agree that this is probably more site specific. And I think at that point, the administrators need to take the reins and deal with them site specific, whatever that might be. And that's not for us to decide up here, how a building administrator is going to run their site.
no, but it is for us to direct. So when we have generalizations and we're directing off
I
of
get it.
would not be great information. So it leaves us no option, because it's like, have you ever heard the term like a mushroom keeping in the dark and feeding me crap? Like, I don't know how else to explain it to you. It's a term. And that's what it feels like, because it's like, when you're talking, especially tonight, in regards to the 4-day and meetings, and there's nothing I can't even grasp to even give something to administration. So what? Hey, tell me about all the meetings that you're having and if they're overwhelming for every elementary. That is such a broad statement. So I don't know. And maybe what I need is a really good ask, and I need to process what you said. But I agree with Trustee Kirkman. When you get up here and you take the pulpit, the idea is that you're speaking for the majority, and the majority of teachers wanted a 4-day week based on survey, based on talking to teachers. That is what they asked for. So I very much so agree with Trustee Kirkman that it now sounds like buyer's remorse. So it's one of those things of like, well, wait, you said that it would be easier if you did this, and this would help you, and you would have more time here, and then you would have Fridays where you're dedicated and you don't have students so that you can plan. And then it's also more difficult because we say, but students seem really happy. Well, isn't that the point? This one's hard for me.
But this
tonight.
is an experiment, though. I agree with you that this is an experiment. We're 2 months into the school year with this new 4-day student contact week. So yeah, I think there's going to be adjustments, and I think everyone understands that the first year. And so I agree with you to where we need to look at, and the building administrators, this district, whatever, needs to look at how we can maybe tweak some things so that, yeah, they aren't burdened. Because the number of meetings, I agree, have not decreased. So I get what you're saying in that sense. I think it was just how it was kind of presented. It kind of took me by surprise that it kind of felt like that buyer's remorse. So I don't know. The district's going to have to look at maybe tweaking some of those things to make sure those meetings are still happening or whatever. But
I would like to follow up on what has already been said and just, again, put a little bit of a finer point on it. So I know that you had mentioned that, we're the board and you're presenting this information to us. But if we are to, as Chair Taylor mentioned, direct the staff to take specific actions, it's good to have good data in order to take actionable steps, right? If there is a problem, it's nice to know exactly what the problem is, so that we can identify the root of the problem and then solve that problem. And so that's why I was asking about, well, what types of meetings are they, right? And is the non-directed time being protected at the building level? If that's not the case, so if the non-directed days are being eaten up with directed activities, that's good information for us to know, because then we can say, hey, district staff, will you look into it for XYZ buildings? Or just in general, please make sure that you communicate to the principals that the non-directed time is non-directed time. Let the teachers collaborate, because that's what it's
Is
for.
that what's happening?
That has happened. So there have been buildings where directed time has gone over the 3 hours of allotment.
Okay.
So that has happened.
Okay, so we need clarification from the district admin to building admin to say, please remember to protect the non-directed time so that teachers have the time to prep that they need. That's a clear directive that we can give. If it's about the IEP meetings, before you had mentioned that they were on Wednesdays, was that during the early release time that the IEP? No, it was just all day on Wednesdays that they were doing that. Okay, and the reason why it was that one day was to make it easier to have subs cover the classes for the teachers, or was it during specials, or how did that work for the IEP meetings previously that's not working now?
So it certainly worked. It made it easier to schedule, because when you're only having to work on one day of scheduling, everything's going to be built through that day. And so you also then, there's just fewer moving pieces. And so you can target which teachers are going to come out, so you can provide coverage for them. I don't know that they get subs for it necessarily, but provide coverage for it. And now it's all over the place. There's no dedicated day. So the whole process is brand new. Now at the secondary level, we didn't have that.
No,
So-
I have other questions about the secondary.
Sure.
I haven't even got to that part yet.
Okay.
But question for district staff and admin, for the directed days, is there any way to protect some time for these IEP meetings so that maybe they can have them on Fridays and parents can come in with the kids and you don't have to, it's just an idea, spitballing.
I think we just let the district
Yeah, I think
take
that,
it from here, the administrator.
yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think that I personally,
Yeah, Chair Taylor, Trustees. So a couple of things. One, I'm in schools every week. I usually walk through the buildings. I have asked numerous teachers about how the 4 days week's going. And I hear some different things. What I do hear is transition times right now. Yes, I'm hearing that there is that transition that we knew of taking 5 days into 4 days, but I'm also hearing benefits too from it. Nobody has came up to me and told me this is a terrible idea. This is something that we don't want to have. That's nothing I haven't heard. The last conversation I had was at a teacher out of Skyview, and they mentioned, yeah, it's been a lot of planning. Because now I have to plan every day based on this new high school schedule. Other things I heard though is I enjoy seeing my kids every day. I didn't get to get that last time. So there's always a little bit of some things that we need to work on, but also some benefits from it too. And I think that's the reality where we are just 7, 8 weeks into the school year. So I don't have not anything to my knowledge. I'm looking at any of our administrators as well that has came in and said that there's any concern at all where we're at. In fact, I think we've done remarkably well moving into these transitions personally. For where I'm speaking, I think it's been a pretty smooth transition for the most part outside of the busing, although we've made some great progress in that as well with our school year. And it will get better as the year goes on. We have meetings. We've always had meetings. That is part of the job of being a teacher. It's part of the job of being an administrator. That's part of special education and the federal requirements of having meetings. Can we look at meetings? Absolutely. I think we can look at trying to find out where we're at, but we need to have meetings. And I'm happy to give a report next month if you'd like us to look a little bit deeper in this and kind of share where we're at with some of that. I do know Mr. Yarborough is starting some focus groups. The first ones are actually starting tomorrow. We're going to be pulling in some of our teachers. We'll be pulling in some of our students, and we're going to be hearing from them and taking some of these inputs as well so we can get some better information about how we're doing.
And then I do have some additional questions about the secondary concerns that you had brought up. So you had mentioned prep time. Do you have any idea, does anybody have any idea, probably district staff, how many teachers do we have with multiple preps? Do we have a lot of teachers with multiple preps?
Chair, Trustee Benz, I don't have a number.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Yarborough.
Trustee, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz,
Uh-huh.
virtually every teacher at a secondary level has multiple preps. What we have done to try and minimize that is keep that to 2. There are
Okay.
some that do have 3. There are some that do have 5, particularly in our CTE world where they've always had that.
Okay.
So yes, that's not, again, an abnormal piece that we've always had. If you'd like to get an analysis, we can break that down and look at what it looks like per trimester. Remember, again, you went from a teaching load of 6 of 8 to teaching 5 of 6.
Mhm.
So in an actual grading period, you're actually teaching 1 less class than you taught in the previous grading period.
Okay.
So that conversation, but yes, there's no doubt we have multiple teachers who have multiple preps. Again, that two is the goal, and there are pieces that get to the AP calculus, the AP
And when do they
physics.
get to use that prep? How is that prep built in? So if I'm a teacher and I have 2 preps, walk me through it for somebody who doesn't
Chair
understand.
Taylor, clarity of preps, the number of different classes I have to prepare for.
Yep.
In any given day, they're going to have 71 minutes of prep if they teach 5 of 6, because our class periods are 71 minutes long. But maybe I have 2 sections of freshman English, 1 section of sophomore English, and 2 sections of something else. So I have 3 classes I'm prepping for. But again, that 71 minutes, that's
But
always
that's
been
dedicated time to the
Correct.
teacher,
correct.
aside from the Fridays that's happening during
Correct.
the week.
Every day. Correct.
And those preps are being very strongly protected, yes, so that they're not, I mean, in the district, in the buildings themselves, they're not meetings that are being required during people's prep time or anything like that, right?
None that
Okay.
I'm aware of outside of what the contract allows.
Okay.
There are meetings that happen at the elementary level and some things there for sure.
Well, I
There
mean, at
are-
the secondary level,
correct.
because that was the.
There are secondary folks that choose to meet on their preps.
Yeah.
One of the challenges we have is transitioning to a new schedule, and we haven't fine-tuned it yet. We would love to get to where we can have common preps with people who teach the same subject and same class for that very purpose. We're not there in the first iteration, but that is our goal to get to. By the time next year rolls around, we will have that fine-tuned in the schedule so we can have those folks having more collaboration time should they so choose. But the protected prep time,
Mhm.
that's not directed. That's their time within the day,
Okay,
as
so-
the contract allows.
And how many hours are directed for HRS?
So when we say HRS is a bigger conversation. Our every other Friday,
Mhm.
there is a 90-minute block for PLT time,
Mhm.
which directly connects to HRS. And then on the district days, that's only 70 minutes of PLT time because we protected 20 minutes of travel time on the directed time that teachers travel to multiple locations.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
But just clarification, because I'm writing it down, I want to make sure I get it. You said that some teachers choose to use their prep time for meetings and other.
Any collaboration. Okay.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, yes, they may choose to meet together as a PLT, as a grade level and doing those things. Now, there are some exceptions in the contract of EL co-planning time, some other things that there are directed pieces of here's when you can use that. And there's language of how a building is supposed to navigate that within the contract.
Okay.
I want to, Chair Taylor, I want to follow up with Superintendent Russell on this particular issue because just a contract question outside of the meeting.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coffey, back to you. Thank you. Thank you. More questions for Mr. Coffey, or I'm going to continue to let him comment?
Well, yeah, no, I would love to be able to take action on the feedback that you're providing to us to provide the district staff with clear directions. So I'm asking a favor for the next time you come with this information. Could you come with some numbers for us or clear stuff that we could pass along so that maybe we can solve some of these problems for you? Because it is a concern. It is definitely a concern. So thank you.
For sure. Just want to follow up on the EL code teaching meetings and all that. I do have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Trimble for next Wednesday, Mr. Yarborough as well. So it's not like, there isn't work being done. And again, I'm not coming here seeking solutions from you all. I just am trying to give you a sense. I mean, when I first got this position, I asked Dr. Keller, who was the superintendent today, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do they want to hear from me or whatever? And she said, just give them the teacher's perspective. And that's hard to do because we're not a monolith. The different levels are very different. Different schools can be very different. And so to actually give you a sense of what's happening is very different. I don't mean to be this negative Jeremiah all the time either, but I do feel like, the dynamics in our district are interesting. And I feel like it's sometimes hard, it's hard for people to give you bad news. And quite frankly, even your strong reaction to my little bit of bad news, like doesn't help. I mean, I'd never intended to indicate any kind of buyer's remorse. There's just problems. There's difficulties. There were difficulties before too. So it's not like it was perfect before. There are just some kind of unexpected wrinkles where, again, we're trying to fit in, again, the meetings is really where it's coming down. There are some provisions in the contract that do provide some kind of flexibility. In some buildings, it's very rigid. So there are some principals that are very aggressive and they are being told to meet every week, during one of their prep times. Some people are being strongly encouraged to meet at on other days. So, I mean, again, it can vary from building to building. And some of that could be appropriate to the students. That's the other thing. The students aren't a monolith either. So it's very complicated. And again, I'm not really coming here seeking solutions from you. I'm just trying to give you the teacher's perspective.
Well, and I think you're going at it the right way, working with the building administrators and things like that. That's really how it should work. So I appreciate that. And I do understand why you come here with some of these comments. But you also have to understand that some of the comments that you make is going to elicit a reaction from the board in questions and things. And I think this is healthy. I think understanding, even if it might be a little bit negative, I think it's healthy conversation.
I think all conversation is healthy.
Yeah.
I believe that you're here so we can have conversations with you and ask you hard questions and vice versa, and you can give us hard information. But if you know me in real life, this is how I act all the time. So
I do have a question though, and I want to be careful because I know that this is not the place for negotiations. So you just make me toe the line, all right, Ms. Lamont. But back on the contract negotiations with the $300 million from the legislature. And we're talking pretty high numbers here. I'm not going to dive into any detail here. 150 allocated for teacher raises. The other 150 million was not. The State Board of Education said, we're going to use this 150 million for something else. Is that what your comment was when you said that? What happened to 150 million? That was their discretionary?
No, the intention was that all of that $300 million would go out to certificated people in the form of this governor's raise of $6,359.
Right.
The state was only really lawfully able to distribute half of it because at the same time we went from enrollment funding back to ADA funding, which cut everybody's numbers. And so the money was only then provided on an allocated FTE basis as opposed to your actual FTE basis.
There's still most of the teachers, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, if not all of the teachers in the Nampa School District got raises though, right, for this new contract?
For the 23-24, we were able to put half of that governor's raise into the salary schedule. We bumped up every cell by at least $3,000.
What about for the 24-25?
The 24-25 was just the standard raise that was built into the career ladder already.
So over the past last year and this year, how much do you have a kind of a percentage from your perspective of what a general average raise might be on a percentage?
I don't, it's hard to do as well because the way our salary schedule is structured. So for instance, everybody last year got at least 2.25%, but some people might have gotten a 9% because of moving over as well and moving down. Our salary schedule has some really quirky places in it, particularly in the middle, where for years we were, somebody said, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we did that for years and years and years. And you rob from the middle. And so there's some funky spaces in there. So it's really not, it's difficult to kind of put a number on that. Also, 23-24, we gave a dollar amount raise. This last year was a percentage raise. So it's very difficult to kind of give an overarching number.
But a raise last year, a raise this year is where we're at, right? A raise last year, teachers got, then they got another raise this year.
Absolutely.
Yes and yes.
There have been increases to the salary schedule every year that I've been on negotiations. Absolutely.
Okay, and again, this is where I'm going to stop. I might get into areas that should be in a different venue. So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
and I want to apologize. I have a sick parent. I just don't want you to think I'm being disrespectful. Okay. I am listening to you. I just had to make sure. My dad has cancer. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
That's all. And thank you, Mr. Coffey. I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming with the comments because it is good to hear.
Yeah, that's why we keep having you back. So yeah, that's not you're here to talk about these things and we're here to ask you those questions. Is there any more that you have for this evening?
Not tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Coffey. Trustee comments?
Yes.
Go for it.
But I want to keep it short because I've got some people waiting to see if they can go to Disney World and Disneyland here. So I get you. That's what the dance competition is. I want to say, if none of you saw a 7th grade football game last Wednesday, it was a fantastic game. South Hawks and East Valley Middle School played an amazing 4 quarters of regular football and overtime. And every team did amazing. I'm being selfish because my son is the quarterback of South, but South team did amazing, and they won. And I wanted to walk over and congratulate the East team for playing a great game, but their coach was doing what amazing coaches do, which was kind of making sure that every kid walked out of that place with their head held high. So I wanted to recognize them. I thought it was a great football game, and you all missed out if you didn't watch it. So. Second thing, I was able to tour Columbia High School. I'm just reminded of how amazing our educators are at this district. Schools are great. Our schools are doing great. Our teachers are amazing. Miss Katie over at Columbia turned me on to an amazing book by Anthony Doerr, and I blew through it in a week, and I thought it was an amazing book. So I love touring the school. I love touring the schools and seeing all the amazing things that are happening. So, okay.
We should expect a book report from you then?
No, I'm going to have the students do it because they had an amazing book report about Sam
No.
Malo.
Had time to meet with Principal Wilston Hume over at Columbia on some, what is that called? I forget again. Gradient, yeah. Just kind of the new and improved summit, if you will. That's how I look. Pretty impressive. Some really good things to hear. Trustees, if you haven't been yet, please make sure you go. This is not a plug for Wilston Hume at all, but please make sure you go listen to what he has to say, the administration has to say about Gradient. Looks like there's some pretty good things happening.
Finished?
Yeah, surprised?
No. Sorry. Trying to even put my thoughts together. So I don't know if you mentioned it, but was it the Skyview Nampa High football game?
No,
but thanks for
Southeast.
mentioning that.
Okay, so I do want to mention that I got the opportunity to attend the Skyview Nampa High football game, and I do forget how funny the things that we say to each other are. So it was just hilarious, but it was also incredible. I just have to say that our stadiums look and feel and sound absolutely incredible. Completely different experience. They are just gorgeous. Very, I don't know. It's a very interactive, very professional, very interactive experience. So just kudos to the staff for that design, the way that they look, the way that they've come together. Kudos to Tyler for all the film that he gets from every single angle for the entire game, and
Tyler.
Matt as well, and also to the really comprehensive things that you guys have done for our football players, and to really highlight what they do, how much fun they're having. It was just a great experience overall.
I thought you were going to mention the Skyview Columbia game. That's what.
Oh, it was the Skyview Nampa game.
It's all right.
You know what? I will say Mr. Keefe is my mentor when it comes to photography.
Oh,
And he does amazing work taking pictures. And
Oh,
learn
I know.
all the time, so.
and just there's a whole intro to the kids coming out and a whole intro to the game. It's really just incredible
It's
work.
elevated. Certainly
Yeah,
elevated.
very.
So I just want to celebrate the fact that we're at parent-teacher conferences already. First trimester, got the invitation today to sign up for those. And so that's kind of an exciting milestone in the school year. And just a reminder for those of you watching who may have kids in the district, your parents, no school on Halloween or the day after. So,
It's a holiday now?
well, no, because everybody's exhausted from parent-teacher conferences because it's that week. So please just remember to sign up for those.
Okay, trustees, if that concludes trustee comments, I will now take our form from Clerk Lamont for public comments.
There is none.
Okay,
None.
so we have no public comment. We will now go ahead and move to our consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, I second.
Second.
Motion
ahead.
has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that now brings us to the action portion
Have a
of.
good time.
Enjoy Disneyland and
Have a lot of
Columbia.
fun.
Enjoy
Glad
Disney
you
World.
stayed. Now we'll move to the action portion of our agenda. We will start with a curriculum committee selection. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight I'm going to have Ms. Gomez, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, come and present information about our math curriculum adoption that is taking place and talk through that process and the committee and a recommendation for our committee to begin work on that.
Tyler, a second to pull up the map.
Okay, so this evening we are selecting a elementary math adoption committee. This committee is going to be made up of 20 people, 2 representatives per trustee zone, and then 10 district staff or 10 district representatives. Do you have the list? Do you want to pull it up, please? So trustees submitted their 2 representatives per zone, and Tyler's working on pulling that up. And then we have 9 to 10 people on the NSD side, depending on if there's a trustee that would like to serve on the committee, or we will appoint somebody.
Aren't you? Oh, no, you're not a math teacher.
So on my left-hand side, you'll see that there are our NSD representatives and our district appointee if needed. And then to the right are the parent community members. Is there a trustee that would like to serve on the math adoption committee?
The word math wasn't in that sentence.
Yeah, unfortunately, the times are not conducive.
Can we volunteer Dave? Yeah, trustee.
He's not here, yeah.
He's out hunting, so I will volunteer him as tribute.
Congratulations.
But on this particular issue, a board member can join after the fact, since we're the one approving this.
Yes, but I guess my question is so it has to be equal representation, so 10 and 10. And I believe they have 10 without the district appointee. And a board member would be considered an educator, not a community member.
That's okay. So it's probably best just the way it
No
is.
district appointee.
the way it
Okay.
is, just to keep the 10 and 10, right?
That
Or
would-
to keep the balance.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And these names were all chosen based on the submissions from the forum, correct?
Yes.
Trustees, if there's no other questions, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that the board approve the formation of the curriculum adoption committee, the math curriculum adoption committee in accordance with policy 2520
And as presented.
and as presented, with the list as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So just a question for clarification, that's including the district appointee, so Kayla Cook, or not?
Oh,
It does not include the district appointee.
So does that motion need to be changed, Clerk Lamont?
no, that would be 10 with that
It would
teacher
be.
on there. Yeah, with the district.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, so Kayla
It
is the
10 with.
district.
Kayla,
appointee.
it would be
Oh,
the
I'm
10th
sorry.
person.
It's 10 with.
As presented then,
Yes,
which is
yes,
exactly what
Yes,
we're looking at.
that's exactly right, because it is 10.
Yeah, so having a board member on there would actually,
Put it
So it would
on
make it
balance.
11 and then we, yeah.
see, that math I can do. No,
Okay.
so we're good. Where are we at on this? Did you
We-
second?
It's actually already been approved and done.
We did? Did I vote?
Did you vote?
Gosh, I don't know.
Okay,
It's bedtime, folks.
thank you.
It's approved as is. Okay.
It is
So that's
approved
our
as is
committee.
with
It is
those 10.
approved.
Yep, that's
Excellent.
exactly how the motion went through.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we will now move on to B, Cap Ed ASB credit card limit
Um,
increase. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, I believe there was a little bit more information. Ms. Gomez, did you? were you able to
Oh,
share
Yes, I
the-
have just a couple
I think just a
information.
couple of
Sorry.
slides on
Please.
the
I
schedule
did not
and
mean
what's
to
going to
rush
take
you.
place.
Sorry.
Is that on the math adoption or is that on the update?
This is on the math adoption still.
Just that we'll share background information. We call it homework for the committee tomorrow. And then our first meeting will be the 24th, where we will generate a rubric, and then we'll send that rubric to publishers so that the committee can start screening. And then I just wanted to show the dates that we'll be meeting, because you are welcome to come attend any of those meetings that you'd like. And this, our ELA committee meets here at the district office, but math will be meeting at the Greenhurst Learning Campus in what was the library, because we'll be having samples. And so just to not take up space here, to have that available, we have a space over there. So I just wanted to share those dates, and that we'll have some open house dates in February for the community to come and weigh in. And so anytime along the way, you're welcome to attend. That's all I have.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. All right, now on to B, Cap Ed ASB credit limit increase. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, trustees, before us tonight is Mr. Dewey, Finance Director, to discuss a increase to our Cap Ed credit cards, and he'll explain the reason why for that. We've come to some situations the last year or so based on some inflation reasons, and just share some information about that if you would, Mr. Dewey.
Yeah, I tried to do this via a video again, but apparently they want me in person now. So
Your video was so dang good.
I know,
It was
I know.
like so good, so quick.
So quick.
So
I
good.
know. I'll try to do it again. Yeah. So basically, what's happening right now in our world, our ASB cards, our Associated Student Body cards, are all the monies that we use at the secondary schools and at elementary schools for sports and all that type of stuff, and dance and all that. Well, as you guys know, everything's gone up in price. So anytime that we go out of town, that's what they use, is for the fuel, for the hotels, for the food and all that stuff. And it doesn't take long for those cards to get used up. And I gave some example of where we have currently on the cards right now. And the hope is to ask Cap Ed to give us some more credit, which it basically said, I just need to ask you guys to approve it. And at that point in time, we're there, and it gives us some more flexibility in being able to have more on the card before we have to turn around and try to make payments in the middle of a weekend or something like that, just to make sure that their cards work. So that's kind of where we are right now.
These limits, or the charged amounts, they're paid off monthly, right?
Yes, they have to by,
Okay.
or they get fees
So
and all
we're,
that, just like
so
anything
basically,
else.
we're not charged, we're not paying any interest.
No, it's not like a typical credit card we'd hold. We just basically doing it in order to not have to give cash out to schools to go on trips.
So like the dance we just approved, they're going to go out and they might have spent several $1,000s, and you have an ASB director or whatever that's going to use that card to, or, whatever,
Yeah.
whichever it is gonna be.
Basically, and what happens, a good example, Columbia actually has that limit that they have is split up into 6 different cards. So at that point in time, they're given 6 different people at any given time to people to try to go through and grab stuff, do things. And it's a whirlwind to keep track of. And that's why we have very good bookkeepers in those schools.
Is that how they are tracked school to school? We give them their budget, and then the expenditure is tracked school to school.
So there's a difference between ASB versus what we give them for like general fund and that. These are the school's accounts for like football, basketball, and all that kind
All
of stuff.
theirs.
And so whatever's in their bank account is basically what they get
Through
to spend.
fundraisers.
That they can do.
That's exactly
And then
right.
they use the card.
Yep. And then
Okay.
this is like their ASB funds go in there as
So
well.
this is
and-
not taxpayer money that they're charging. This is actually funds that they've raised that they're charging to that account.
Correct. And whenever you pay for gate at the events,
Mhm.
that gate goes in the ASB accounts, and then that money is also used to pay the refs and anybody else that's doing that
So
work.
here's a weird question now that
Mhm.
Trustee Taylor brought it up. When they charge something from these accounts that is not taxpayer money, they have to pay the tax on that, correct?
What do you mean by that? Like when we are paying for something?
Yeah, if we go to Albertsons.
It all depends on different scenarios. A lot of times
We don't need to
when-
get into details.
Yeah, a lot of
this,
times when you're going out of town, it's very difficult to get a hotel or anybody
absolutely.
to basically get us
But
the
in
tax
town,
exempt status.
If they were to use that ASB
And
card,
We
they-
do the same thing with our internal P cards. We ask them to you get a tax exemption on there. It's called the ST 101 to the
Sure.
company. Majority of the companies know around here to make sure to give us
Okay.
non-tax sales tax.
all
Yes.
right, probably, let me write this down, because this is something I need to bring up later, outside of the meeting.
Okay.
We'll bring up later. Just a question for you later on.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something we try to harp on because obviously we shouldn't. And we do that with our own finances as well. Sometimes it's difficult in the way that everybody does Square and all that kind of stuff a little differently now. Internet's a little even more harder for that, but that's kind of where we live in right now.
Okay.
Chair
Trustee?
Taylor, I'll make a motion to approve a request to increase our ASB credit card limits at Cap Ed Credit Union by $100,000.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We are now to C, Dr. Russell, third reading, policy 2510.
Chair, the trustees, tonight before us is policy 2510. This is our third reading of policy 2510. Again, as a draft, this comes from House Bill 710, which put some new requirements around harmful materials in libraries. I think we've discussed that for several board meetings. In our last meeting, we had discussed wanting to know some of the specific procedures that may take place around this policy if we were to do that. So you'll see in your board packet, there is the memo, of course, and then there is the actual policy. But if you look, you'll see there's a 2510P, which is the procedure. And I was just going to kind of direct our attention tonight to that document. The procedure document starts on page 1 with just reiterating the policy again. And the reason why that's there is because it clearly, it follows Idaho code, which defines the harmful materials. Page 2 is where I was going to kind of put most of our direction to kind of walk us through what that procedure might look like tonight. And it starts with this, that if a concern comes from materials in the library that are deemed harmful by an individual, then they would have a form that they would fill out at the school to indicate their concern. Once that form is filled out, that would be given to, that's step 1. Step 2 then is that form would be given to the school administrator. And the school administrator would then have a couple of things that they would need to do. The first is they would need to acknowledge to the complainant that they received the form. So the complainant understands that their form was received. They would need to notify the school district as well that a form was given. And then they would have 15 days to respond to that complaint. So it's number 2 there is a notification. The administrator, again, notifies the complainant that they got it. Step 3 is they confirm that they have given the form. And step 4 is they notify the district. So all of those are the first 3 or 4 steps. Step 5 is if any materials would be challenged, they would be placed on a separate shelf. So they'd be removed from the circulation of the library and be placed on a separate shelf. Those materials would not be allowed to be checked out unless parents had a written parental consent to the school to allow their student to be able to check out those materials while they're under a review process. And step 6, the principal then would make an initial decision and determine whether those materials need to stay in a restricted area or whether they would go back into the circulation of the library. Once that decision is made within 15 days, again, I'm putting a timeline on it. If the complainant is not satisfied with the principal's decision, then it goes into an appeal process that falls very similar to several of our other district policies around our grievance or our 4120 process. The complainant can appeal to the curriculum instruction director, and they would have 10 days after they receive the notification from the principal to appeal to the curriculum instruction director. The curriculum instruction director would form a group or a panel to review the complainant, to review the principal's decision, and make a decision as well. And again, they have 15 days within that opportunity to respond to that. If they respond and the complainant is not satisfied with that response from the curriculum instruction director, then it can move up into the superintendent level. Again, they would have 10 days after receiving the decision from the curriculum instruction director to be able to have another opportunity to have their complainant reviewed. It would be at the superintendent or designee level. And again, very similar, the superintendent would have 15 days to be able to review the complainant, review the principal's decision, review the curriculum structure's decision, and then ultimately form another decision. If again, that is not satisfactory to the complainant would have 10 days and they could appeal to the school board. The school board at that point would need to hear the complainant and would, as it says here, the board would review the complaint at its next regularly scheduled meeting and provide a written response within 30 days of that meeting for a final decision on that. This is a draft process, and I'm happy to take any input, any questions, make any revisions that you feel may be needed.
I have a question, just because we received some letters in the opposite direction this week. If someone objects to, if a community member objects to the removal of some books, would this be the same process to get the books reinstituted?
Chair Taylor and Trustee Binns, that process could be done a couple of ways. One, it could be done through process 4120. This would be the one, this deals specifically with the harmful materials. So this is not written to go the opposite direction. If a decision is made, I believe that would go through the uniform grievance process of 4120, which follows something very similar. Again, going back to the principal level at the building, then going to a director level at the schools, then going to the superintendent level, and then ultimately going to the school board level.
Chair Taylor, is there any requirement for the complainant to have actually read the book?
I think that's part of.
I believe that was part of the form. I'm sorry,
policy.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Sue, I believe that's part of our form. We did have that in there. I don't have the form here with me right now, but
When you say that, I remember that it is part of it. It is.
Yeah.
And it should be. That's good.
yes, I believe so.
Nice
Read the
job,
book.
Waylon.
Thanks, Waylon.
Yes, you. Yes, thank you. I hope it's like that every time.
So Taylor, I have a quick question for clarification. In the statute or in the proposed draft policy, it says on line 57, I'm not 2510 draft policy, not 2510P. Line 57, Tyler, if you could, I don't know if you have that at your fingertips. Any current staff, currently enrolled, may challenge the selection of materials for the library by submitting a written request form for reconsideration to the principal. And then at that point, then the way I'm reading this, is that the reconsideration goes to the principal, but a building level reconsideration committee, including the librarian, the teacher, a parent, and administrator, then reviews the challenge material. If I'm not mistaken, in 2510, let me just make sure I read this again before I thought you had mentioned that the principal will review the challenge.
Because I think.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, that is accurate. So as you see in the policy that when it goes to the building level, there does need to, the principal needs to conform a group that is a librarian, a teacher, a parent, and themselves to review that. That is part of the principal's decision when that is made. So that group will make that initial decision. The principal will respond to the complaint.
So that's all that, so in number 2 of 2510P, notification of administration, that is notifying the principal that I have a problem with the book. The principal reviews that objection. What does that mean? Reviews the objection within 15 days.
Exactly what line 57 says, that the principal would form a building level reconsideration committee. Would include a librarian, a teacher. So at the school level, the school librarian, a teacher at the school, a parent from the school, and an administrator, so that could be the principal or vice principal, would review the complainant. The principal then would oversee that process at the building level and then respond to the complainant within that time frame.
Okay, so maybe
we could clarify that later.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Russell, maybe in number 2 then of 2510P, instead of principal will review, the committee will review the objection, just so it's consistent with the policy.
I get that.
Well,
rather than they think that one person is going to be reviewing this and making a decision.
Well, I think I'd like clarification then. So the way that it's outlined
in the procedure, the draft procedure, because it includes the policy at the beginning, it appears to me that this procedure section that is in draft right now is replacing that previous language because it takes that entire, it ends, the policy that's printed on the P document ends with the paragraph that says set forth above. And then the part that you were referencing, the paragraph that starts in line 57, that is not included in the policy, but the policy, the steps that are delineated in that draft policy document replaces that paragraph. So my assumption was that it's replacing that minimal, very vague procedure with a much more detailed process. But am I mistaken in that?
Are you saying 57 through 65?
Yeah,
got
57
it.
through
I
65
just wanted to
in
make
the
sure.
original policy.
I get what
is
you're
being-
saying is you feel like it's superseded by procedure.
Yeah, like it's replacing it. We're breaking it apart because this is much more high level vague.
Yep.
But am I misunderstanding that?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, it's not meant to replace it.
Okay.
You'll see that it starts with the building level consideration committee, which we can clarify that language in step 2, which the principal is going to oversee. And then you'll see there, it says the review committee will assess the materials based on Idaho law, as well as the criteria for non-secondary materials, and make the recommendation for restrictions or removal of materials. That would be to the building principal, who then will respond to the complainant. There in line 63, based upon this committee's recommendation, the principal will decide on the material status in the library. Again, we mentioned that. Or will send the reconsideration form onto the district reconsideration committee, and that is the curriculum instruction director.
So are you saying it defines it, not supersedes it or complicates it, but both have
Yeah,
to be
trying
read
to add
together?
steps and
Both have to be
processes to
read
it,
together
but
to understand.
Okay.
definitely can clean the language up.
Just
if we
looking for
need to.
clarification
Yeah.
because the assumption is what I don't like, the ambiguity in policies.
Yeah, so could we, then if this is simply clarifying the steps within, giving more detail about these steps that are described at a very high level, if we're reprinting the policy at the beginning of the procedure document, it would be nice to have that general summary of the procedure included, the entire policy
This has to be-
included,
It has
right?
to be included on the form.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I see what you're saying. It is missing that section. I don't know why it printed off and didn't add the other parts of it, because the definition,
Right, because it's just that paragraph
Yeah.
that has the high level summary which is why I was assuming it was replacing it, but I
yeah,
don't know.
we can make that change.
Okay,
And then just a stickler for
Oh, I see
detail.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I read the policy and then flipped over to procedure.
Right.
I get exactly what you mean because it's missing it.
yeah,
Got you.
okay.
And then just a stickler for the detail. When you say 15 days, is that calendar days? Is it school days?
yeah,
Is
good.
it
School
work
day.
days?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, it was
Is it
school
student
days.
contact days as opposed to the 5 days?
Ooh, but then if it's school days, we run into that funky summer thing. Right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, the way this would work, if there were something that would come place in late May, it would be very difficult to be able to meet some of this, because some of this does require staff and folks to be on there. Now,
Yeah.
we could write the policy that requires staff to come in on the
Yeah.
side to go
Yeah.
through these.
We're not
but-
going down that road.
So guys, to get
I'm
clarification,
not going down that road.
to get clarification, we want to see this again updated with the missing paragraph and then the procedure as defined as school days. Was there
Yes.
something else that you needed added?
No,
in?
I just think if the form, the actual form that they fill out too, could that be included?
It could,
That's
yeah.
part of this whole policy too.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you.
so trustees, can I entertain a motion to go ahead and bring this back for a fourth?
I would actually
Reading?
recommend doing a motion to table it with
Yeah.
the
Thank you.
suggested edits.
Trustees, can I entertain a motion to table policy 1150?
Well, 2510.
25
Oh, sorry, 2510
policy.
with suggested edit.
So I'll make
So
a,
moved. Oh, sorry.
I'll make a motion that we table policy 2510 draft and 2510P, that we table that with suggested edits and to come back with suggested edits.
I withdraw my motion in second.
Sorry, I
Okay,
apologize.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kate, D, policy 1150, agenda setting.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is a first read of policy 1150. Policy 1150 is a policy that the district has had for quite some time. It defines agenda setting and what our board agendas generally look like. However, there was new law that came out this year in Senate Bill 1361 that did introduce a requirement for patrons to be able to request items to be considered for board agendas. And you'll look, much of 1150 hasn't changed, but it particularly does around lines 73 through 87, where it does give opportunities for patrons to request new business action or informational items on there. So line 75, starts that for a patron to be able to request that. Line 76, they need to be a resident residing within the district. They'll need to include their subject matter and the request related to the subjects that they're asking to be requested for the board to consider. Line 80 there, the submission needs a request and needs to be submitted in writing to the clerk, detailing their name and address and the requests. 84 there is the approval, so the request will be agendized upon the assent of 2 board members or the chair. And then line 86, scheduling, the agendized item will be scheduled at the earliest practical opportunity, subject to the chair's discretion. This was information that was reviewed through our legal after reviewing the new legislation on 1361 and kind of added this in the other components of the policy we had in place. And happy to take any questions, comments, or revisions. You'll see also we have had the form, our clerk Lamont was able to draft a draft form here, as you can see also in your board policy of what that format might look like for a patron to request an agenda item.
Okay, and then, so that brings me to the question about process, right? So would this form live in a digital version on our website that patrons could fill out and submit? Is this a physical form that I have to come pick up from the district office? Do they simply include this type of information in an email, or must they use the form? What do we need to delineate how they submit this information?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I think it could be either, any or both. It could be a document that they can download and submit through to the clerk. It could be picked up here at the district office and dropped off and then submitted to the clerk. I think the intent is to have it both ways.
Okay.
All of the above.
Yeah, I would say so too, because doesn't it need to be accessible to the public in any way, shape, or form? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, trustees, any additional questions, or I will entertain a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve policy 1150 for first reading.
For a second, can I speak to that, or do we have
You
to
have to
wait for a
second?
second?
I second, so you can
All
speak to it.
Can, I don't have any, I don't really see any issues with this. I don't see why we not go ahead.
The first and final?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make.
So now that it's
Change
been
the
seconded,
motion.
I will go ahead and
You have to
take a,
withdraw.
yeah, well, don't we need to take a vote and then a new
Do we
motion,
need-
or can we withdraw after a second?
You can amend,
You can amend it.
Trustee Sue could amend the motion for a final read, but if you guys want, we could also verify how other districts are doing it and make sure we can bring back information on how we're implementing it.
Okay.
And so I think I would recommend, because a lot of districts are just starting this process, to let do this as a first read and then bring it back so we can also discuss how we're implementing it so that it's transparent with patrons. But it's up to you, just because we will have to start it once it's approved.
But there's nothing in here that,
Will we need change? No.
no, there's nothing in this particular policy, and I think we could approve whatever motion might be on the table and then just direct staff to implement it
Yep.
and make changes as necessary.
Madam Chair, I move to amend my motion.
Okay.
I would like to amend my motion to approve policy 1150 for first and final reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, With that, that concludes the action portion of our agenda. We will now move into the information items and reports. We will start with a transportation services update. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight, and I have a director of operations, Mr. Stauffer, will come and share some updates around our transportation services and kind of where we currently are, and then what our timeline is, kind of moving forward with some things.
And am I to assume that we have first student here and Rebecca for any and all questions, or you guys are going to do a dance?
Chair Taylor, we prefer them to not dance.
Okay, got it.
However, they may do that. So
Is there a song?
yes, I'll make sure there's a good song
The
too.
first student anthem.
The wheels on the bus.
That goes
Yeah.
round and round. Got it. Got it.
Board of Trustees, we, as requested, we wanted to come before you and share a little bit of the information that we've accrued over the last few weeks. With this information, again, we're finding ourselves more and more with inside of a routine that we're finding basically our stride. That does not mean that there aren't any issues or concerns that we're still working with and identifying as we've been going through this process. But our operation of transportation looks more akin to what it has looked in previous years as far as we're dealing with normal day issues. We're dealing with a sick driver that is called in. We're dealing with a train that is coming. You know, those types of things are things that we're seeing more frequently. There are still some things that we're aware of and we're working towards. And as you heard last time, some of the speed of the changes that we have made also perpetuated other issues. Since we've been able to slow down, the data that I'll show you will start showing you some of the routine base that has come back up, and we are also making some adjustments through that. So the first part I wanted to share with you is our call log. As you know that we've been monitoring, I'm going to go first with those who have used our website request form, and as we've received calls who are filling out the call, those concerns that they have. Last week we had 12 of those that were filled out, and they were broken down by subject that is on the form. So you can see that from where we were to where we now are, we are getting into a place where we're addressing and definitely in a way that we are able to handle those concerns as they come up in more real time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the solution is always what the requester wants, because some of those things are here is the stop fits all the criterion. A new stop will not necessarily be created because it fits within the criterion, and or it does. So we've had both of those. So just wanted to make sure that we shared this information with you and give you just kind of that perspective of this part is improving. Now, akin to this one, and I'll take questions as well, but I wanted to share this slide as well, is our call log, our call volume that we're receiving at both the transportation department and through the first student's office. This is a week worth of call. There's a summary at the bottom for each day. So if you look at the first column, which is last week, there's 140 calls that came in, 112 were answered without having to go to voicemail. The next one is, you can see the total calls. If you look by Thursday, now on the 30th, that is a weekend of change. We made some adjustments, and it was our last big change that we were putting together. We had that many calls in preparation for the change on the 1st. So the 1st is when the new changes went into effect. And again, you can see the call volume based off of that. Most of those calls are, hey, can you tell me where my stop is, or just confusion on many parents and just trying to find out where things had been adjusted. Even with the communication we put out, there's a lot of clarifying that needed to take place. And that's one vehicle that we saw a little bit higher volume on those 2 days. If you look at the Wednesday and the Thursday and Friday, you start to see it fall into a very normal pattern of what we're seeing as far as call volume. So both requests from parents calling us and also the forms that you see for changes to routes. Those are the first two pieces of data that we've shared before, and we wanted to continue to share that with you. And also this is found on our website as well. Any questions up to this point in time on these two?
Could you go back one slide?
That would be a $1 charge at this point in time. Yes, absolutely.
Chair Taylor. I know you don't have the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. This is great. I mean, the data that we're getting here and the concerns, obviously, it dropped a little bit, right? In the first week or so of school. Do you think that low number 12 might be because people are just, for lack of a better term, giving up, trying to get resolution to an issue?
Chair Taylor and Vice Chair Kirkman, I don't think it's one you can rule out either. I don't know if I can quantify it. I don't know if I can rule it out either. I think there's probably a little bit of that that happened. I think we have to acknowledge that. But I do think that as we look at the other sequential components of how things are improving, I do believe that some of the concerns have resolved because of
No
the
doubt.
work that we've done.
No doubt.
Now, that being said, I think there's validity to that statement, but I don't know how to quantify it.
And you don't know how to get to the point where you can resolve them if they don't continue to bring that forward. If there are concerns, if there are issues, what do? You go knock on everybody's door and ask them? Yeah, it's not Halloween yet.
Well,
I do think we have had some that continue, excuse me, Chair Taylor,
Yeah,
we do
sorry.
have those that have been repetitive and we have been able to address that and we appreciated that because some of the changes, again, caused changes that weren't there with good intentions, you sometimes undo something that was done for somebody else. And so there's been this piece of finding the right, I don't want to say the Goldilocks version, but you kind of trying to find that. You're trying to find it so that sweet spot is that not everybody is 100% happy it's in front of my door, but they're also not displeased with where it is located. So I think we're seeing more of that. But again, to your point, I do think we need to recognize that there probably is a little bit of that. And I don't know if we will ever fully get away from it, regardless, even if we're in a good year that we have not made these changes, that we're not introducing a whole new structure and system. I think there's always going to be a little bit of that.
So let me change the verbiage that I just said. It's not necessarily given up. I think of most of them, and this comes from some conversations I've had with some patrons.
Sure.
That, it's just like, you know what, it is what it is. I'm not going to get the change. I'm not going to get the bus stop back where it was, that kind of a thing. So not necessarily given up, but maybe more just resolved.
Yeah.
Just resolved with the change. It is what it is. We'll get used to it. That's probably a better illustration of what I was talking about.
Quantify based on writers? Like, I guess I understand we can't maybe quantify happiness and satisfaction. And I get that because those are intangible, really. And I agree. I think the question was valid, but don't we know, like, our writer counts are going back up, or we are actualizing the amount of writers that we thought we had, or we lost writers in the beginning, we have that data, right? Because that's hard numbers.
Trustee Taylor, good news is that we're going to have a lot more of those numbers next week. We have our state audit next week, so we'll be able to speak to that a little bit better. We have a process in place right now. We do have snapshots of data on riderships. I want to be careful about projecting, but what we look at is our loads. We do know that we feel that there are some buses that we know those routes seem heavier than what they have in the past. And part of that is route changes. Part of that is vehicle components. And we also see some that are not very heavy as well. So I think next week we'll be able to give you some more streamlined data as far as what that looks like and our ridership counts look like.
So you don't have it yet, but what I hear you saying is you're working on that, and those are hard numbers that you'll be getting to us.
Yeah, Trustee Taylor, the short answer is yes. We do have some numbers. I don't want to make it sound like we don't have any numbers, but we will have every route, every stop, and those numbers next week as part of the statewide data collection process. So those will be the numbers we'll be submitting to the state as well.
Right.
And so that will be very true data for us to be able to analyze year-to-year data.
Got it. And it was just really a second part to that question. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that next slide that you were on, that is data that you're going to see because you've never had to really worry about this before, right? Mm-hmm. These all went to the previous companies. So this is, you're setting this standard. So next year, when we start school next year, it's going to be interesting to come back and see what this data looks like.
Well, Chair Taylor and Vice Chair Kirkman, to that point, it's going to be better than how we started the show. Obviously, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be better. And the good news is that, as we mentioned, and I think you mentioned in another meeting, did we have this data before? We never did, and that's nobody's fault. We just never had that data. Now we get to make more informed decisions, and it's a byproduct of where we're at, and we appreciate that information to make good, solid decisions.
Yeah, as much as I like data and, I never want to lose
Human.
a parent or a student in a number.
Yeah.
And I know it's difficult. And I know you guys feel the same way.
Yep.
We talk about numbers and data all the time, and I just don't want to lose the student and the parent.
Concur.
Thank
So
you.
I have a couple more pieces of information to share with you. The next one that I'll share with you is one that I think is really a telltale sign of where we are as a system. First off, when you look at the bus at the yard report, this is one that we look at how many buses are actually back at our bus facility. They're completely unloaded and the time stamps in which they're there. Now, part of that, it's probably our most accurate piece of information that we have saying that the bus is empty, because there's checks that the first students has to do to walk through the buses, make sure there's no more kids left on it. And they do 2 of those checks on their route. And so with that, we know that the students are actually off of the bus much sooner than this number. So anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, kids are off of this because we have to do their checks, if that makes sense, before they enter into the bus yard. So you can also look at, this is a week of our bus in the yard, and you can see some of those changes in the routines that the drivers are getting into, as far as our timeliness is getting much more within line of what we would like to see. If you recall, we used to be measuring it from 5:30 to 6. We no longer have to do that. We're measuring from 5:15 to
That's a good sign
5:45.
right there.
So that's one indicator that I just wanted to bring up. And also, if you look at the majority majority of our buses are in the yard around that 5:30 timeframe. Our next slide that I'll show you will talk about the routes that we're running, and I'll show you those numbers.
I'm assuming these are the number of buses and not the percentage. So we don't have 103 buses. We don't
No.
have, okay.
No, 90.
So,
I mean,
Chair,
right.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, the top graph is just true numbers. They're not a percentage.
Mhm.
The bottom one is the on-time performance percentage.
How many vehicles then? So 103 of,
So great question, Trustee Benz. So Trustee Taylor, Board of Trustees, with these numbers, there's always a little bit of deviation because of our field trips or our activities after school. We can run anywhere from 2 to up to, I think, 18. Does that sound about right? 18's been a high on one day of buses that are out distributing kids for various activities. So that number fluctuates a little bit based off of that. So this is not necessarily an exact science every day. It quantifies as far as buses in the yard. So the 9th, we could have had a higher activity date after school. That's why there was only 99 on that date. But it gives you an average of where you're seeing the buses coming in at a much more frequent pace and in a much better cadence. And again, we're much earlier than what we have been in the past. And so that's, again, the indicators we're looking for. This one is not an exact science, but it gives you good indicators.
thank you.
And I just want to applaud, you guys started working on that. You guys simultaneously worked on this as you worked on all of our other issues and routing issues. So this is impressive.
Thank you, Trustee Taylor. And again, I just want to reiterate, there's still some areas that we're still
Understood.
working on. That
Yes.
we are not saying this is a final product. We actually have some routes that we are definitely targeting. Part of it is we needed to build some routines in place, and we're working with those right now. And there's a couple other factors that I'll bring up towards the end of this slide that are things that we're navigating, that are some challenges that we're navigating with that. So I'm getting there. Hopefully I'll be able to answer some of those questions that are on your mind.
Yeah, nobody feels like it was candy coated. I think everybody 100% understood and was on the same page about the busing issue. So yeah.
So the next one, this is actual routes that we currently have, and I did a comparison to the routes that we had on the bid. So we bid at 53 regular routes. We're currently sitting at 54 regular routes. So we are one higher than what we had anticipated in our RFP when we put it out. Preschool is one higher as well. This is due to our numbers being higher than anticipated at this point in time. We're seeing numbers right now for preschool as what we saw at the end of last year, which they tend to start low and increase. So this is I think a good problem for our district to have, is we're seeing an increase of preschool students who are currently in the program that are needing transportation. These also qualify inside of our special education and our child find requirements that we have. So these are required components that we do for special education law. As far as lift buses, these are also special education buses. You notice this is where our biggest change is. We have a change of 7. The tell for this sign also is we have a higher number of students with special education transportation on their IEPs who have come to our district. We are seeing an increase of our percentage of IEP students and special education students. It's a phenomenon that is happening across the state, and we do not project that to slow down. It was one that we didn't know how to project that far ahead, and the number typically we don't see the jump that we saw this year in our special education students. Reasons why, probably a million different reasons why that we could look at. Part of that has to do with services. And if you have good, solid programs in special education, people tend to try to find those. That could be one reason. Another reason is that we just have that need in our area. It's just a flat need. As we've had more people moved in, the need is there. And so we're trying to meet that need. So that's the reason for that additional piece there. There's also a component there that we're trying to be cognizant of time on bus. That's one of the things that when we started this part, that special education students tend to spend a little bit longer on buses because of their needs. And driving across Nampa is not as easy as it used to be. From one point to another point, depending on the program that the student may be in, it might take a little bit longer, just a normal drive to get the student to that side of the city. So those are a couple components there. The last one is our shuttles. This is the CTE component. One of the, again, good things that I think we have seen for the CTE program is, one, we're seeing more enrollment in the CTE program and kids who are using the CTE transportation system. In the past, and I may speak more so from a dad's perspective of his children who participated in CTE. I had a few of them, and I have one in it now, that when they went to their CTE courses, previously, they typically stayed for 1 or 2 periods. And if they would get there, they would tend to find their friends and find a way to wherever they were going. And most of the time it was lunch. So what we have seen is more kids are utilizing our buses, and we've been able to identify that. So we, in a good sense, had to increase our transfer buses to have kids have access to get to the CTE programs. So that's a breakdown of where we currently sit. As far as what we had projected, this is where we currently are. Now, there are some pieces that we are looking for efficiencies in our regular routes to see if there is a component that we can reduce the amount of buses due to light loads on other buses. So for example, if I have 2 adjacent routes that are in the same area and they're serving 10 or 12 kids on each bus, there is a logical component that we might be able to combine those if they fit within inside the time structure. So those are the analysis that we're doing now. And part of the numbers that we just mentioned that we'll be receiving next week will help us with that process of identifying if there's any areas that we can gain some efficiencies as far as utilization of buses. Imagine there's some questions here.
There are some questions. I do have some
I
questions.
just was wondering, I'm holding mine because you might get.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
too. That's why I'm asking, are we done?
For
with
this part,
slide?
yes, I'm willing to take some questions at
Okay,
this
great.
point in time. I think
Um,
it's a good natural break before I get into some other ones.
Okay, mine are going to be around funding,
Mhm.
SPED funding, and understanding the difference here. So are we funded differently for those preschools and those lift buses? Can we leave that slide up, Taylor? Thanks. And
So-
maybe Mr. Dewey, maybe we,
So the answer to that is the busing is basically reimbursed in a couple of different ways. We receive no additional monies for SPED, but it's a funding formula that works for ridership and mileage. And so those are the same 2 key components that help with our reimbursements at this point in time. That's the way that the state looks at
so
it.
maybe I should ask this another way because I want to make sure. So are we receiving with specifically, because I understand for our general population, that additional route, we will not receive additional funding for.
You will.
Oh, we will.
All of these we will, as long
Okay.
as you're having your membership, that counts towards your membership of riding the bus,
Okay.
and you're getting mileage. So those 2 reimbursement factors will be reimbursed even above our route selection. So the first part was what we put on our bid.
Yep.
Those are what we were estimating that we would be at this year. The actual, still we get to reimburse, we get to put those on a reimbursement for potential reimbursement from the state because our students are riding them. There is an increase of those numbers and there's mileage that is accruing for those vehicles as they are driving across the
So as
city.
long as we reach the ratio of making sure that we're fulfilling those state requirements where we have more riders, we're still reimbursed for
Yes.
those overages. Is that a good way to look at it?
There's not, the state doesn't look at it as overages.
It's just.
But
This-
I mean overages from the bid,
Correct.
That's
So
what I
from
mean.
our estimation,
from our estimation. Those
estimation,
overages.
yes.
So.
Okay,
to
But there are
follow-
no overages at the state. The state doesn't see these as necessarily
Understood.
overages.
but just from our bid, but it's because we have more riders. And then I have a
Could-
shuttle question too.
Yeah, so to tell Chair Taylor's question, how much additional money does the 12 extra routes cost?
Great question. So we'll break them down by each one of the routes. Now, the key component is if they stay all year long.
Over and above the bid.
Yep, yes. And then I'll get to that, over and above the bid. First indicator is if we do not change anything, these will be the numbers. If we do reduce, remember it's a daily rate. So if we make adjustments and these change, let's say they go down, then we are eliminating some of those costs. So this would be today's rate projected out for the remainder of the year. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because of how the contract is set up, it's a daily rate and mileage rate. So two things. One, I wanted to just remind us of the RFP and how we built it. So there's one of the key pieces to this contract that we built in the RFP was to not minimize, but put up and be upfront with our fixed costs. In previous contracts, we have had fixed costs somehow mixed in. We weren't real sure of how those impacted routes, but now we do. We know our fixed costs. We know when we look at adding a route, how much it costs. We know if we drop a route, we know how much it costs. So I just want to remind the board about that piece was really a key component of how we built this RFP. So the regular route, in previous years, that would have cost us about $74,000. Additional route now is $43,000. If we run it every day, 150 days, one route is $43,000 for a regular route. I saw a hand go up. I can pause there if there's
No, keep
questions on
going.
that one.
Oh, sorry, unless somebody's hand.
No, it's okay. I'll wait until after because I have a question relating to the overage.
Sure. The preschool routes were bid at a separate rate as well. That's about $71,000 per year because of its special needs and qualifications that it needs. And it also has a second monitor on the bus to help with the students. So that's the additional preschool route is about $71,000 per year. Again, 150 days running every day. The lift buses, again, special ed was a different number. It was about $64,000 per route, running every day, 150 days. If it doesn't run 150 days, those numbers drop because it is a daily rate. Shuttles are $89 per day. So when I looked at it, it was about for those 3 additional routes. And this is a high number because those additional routes are not all full days, but they're about $35,000 for the shuttles.
For one route.
No, for all 3 of those
All
routes.
three.
I did those. I combined all those.
Collective.
So
What
collectively,
did you say, 150?
300.
sorry, say that again.
For the
For the
shuttles again? it was how much?
$35,000.
$35,000.
Yeah,
Yep, for
35,000.
the 3 additional routes.
For the 3.
I don't know.
Collectively, it's about $560,000 if those were to run all day, every day for 150 days. That was the additional.
So please correct me if I'm wrong. There was another additional, almost like overtime, over hours, ad hoc fee. If these routes stay for the entire year, then they're just considered adding the route. If they disappear, but we're over the time, hours, daily hours,
Mileage and hours, yeah.
mileage hours, does that ad hoc fee, the overtime, for lack of a better term, I don't remember what term was used on the RFP, kick in?
Yeah, in any route case, if it goes over, that individual route goes over hours and times, then it does kick in an additional fee.
Okay, so then help me understand. If we keep these routes, if they're permanent routes, then we have the fee for the route. If it doesn't quite work out all the way, So basically, would it be more expensive if the route disappeared and we pay the overage versus the full route, the adding a new route cost? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
I believe so. Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I think that's the analysis that we need to do is we look at
Okay.
the load numbers and we analyze that piece. In most cases, it depends on the number of students you're transporting. If you're going to, the idea is if it's one student that could make a difference and we can still get them in the right amount of time. There's lots of variables we have to look in that too. So the answer is that's what we need to break down. And that's what we're working on now. The first part is we were trying to, as the board directed us, fix the problem. So we had to fix the problem. Now we're moving into the analysis and potentially right sizing some of these routes. Now I do feel very comfortable with our preschool routes and our special ed routes. There is room for growth on some of these buses as well. But those are very special cases that have special needs on the buses or equipment on the buses. And so I do think that we're seeing more, and the numbers are showing us we're seeing more students who are requiring these services.
Okay. And then are there scenarios where we would add the route and pay for the additional hours and mileage because the route is too long, too loaded, and I understand that's part of the
Yeah.
right sizing. I'm just trying to get the full picture. So
Chair Taylor and Trustee Benz, yeah, that's why they're in the bid. Yes, that could happen.
So this may be more of a question for Mr. Dewey. Are month to date, quarter to date, so far, year to date, are we projecting to trend evenly? You know, we had a budget of $8 million total. We're spending money on the depot, these extra overages of 12 routes, various costs. I mean, where are we trending financially?
Well, while you're walking up here, the depot, there's one-time costs.
There's separate costs.
Yes. Yeah, that was the other thing I was
Yeah,
going to say.
sorry,
And
I stole your thunder.
the one thing to remember was we're really only got one bill. We've got our August bill so far. I think we're going to get our September bill here soon. We're starting to look at that. One thing you remember, we remind you that we also did this time versus last time. Our previous contract, we had a 4-hour window when we've actually increased that to 4.5. So we tried to accommodate for those known overages because we were getting hit with overages every single route on our last one. And so we knew, and I wouldn't say it was our previous contractor's fault. It's our community and driving and everything associated with driving in Nampa is worse. Right. And we know it's hard to get from one end of the city to the other. So that's one of the areas. And so we do anticipate, and I anticipated that there possibly could be some increases and a little bit over budget with this. And that's not uncommon whatsoever. I mean, we have to take that into consideration every year. I mean, so we can make an educated guess on these, but we're also at mercy of like our fuel costs and other stuff as well, right? And whenever you have a new contractor or there's always new associated with that we're trying to get through as well. The other thing that we have to keep in mind as well is we redid our entire bus structure, and our previous contractor would have had to have done the same thing. And when we dropped the number of schools, we have no idea how that system would have handled what we currently were doing either. So that's the other part we have to know is, I mean, we're not really talking apples to apples here. And we just added routes based on the exact same structure we had before. We actually have to consider, we had people walking before that now are on a bus going to a whole nother school. So that's created a lot more conflict for us as well.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Dewey. So to answer,
I'm a trustee.
or Mr. Dewey, to answer Trustee Sue's question, when we get our September bill, you'll be able to answer Trustee Sue's question in our November board meeting.
That is the hope. Yes. When it's all said and done, we're still looking at some other costs and that kind of we're looking through. But the whole plan is it'll eventually even out. I don't try to look at this as a 1 year every single year. I mean, granted, if it goes up every single year, that's a lot that we have to deal with. But I think these first couple months, it's not uncommon for there to be certain overages associated with our budgeted projections.
We're asking a lot of detailed questions with a situation that is very not detailed right now.
Not yet. That's what I
I
get
get
too.
it.
That's what I
Totally
get too.
understand
Yeah.
that.
I guess
I'm sorry, Trustee Sue, hold on just for a quick second.
Yeah.
You need to,
I do need to step out. I will be on the phone and still participating. No questions, but I do for a family.
because we also need to go into executive.
Yeah, and I'll get you in. Yep, I will. So I apologize, but I am on with you guys now, and lucky you.
You have to mute, hit the mute button.
Got it.
All right, so. Sorry to interrupt. What is going on over
I
there?
just need to mute myself.
Just hit mute.
Done.
Yeah.
Done. I'm muted.
My only other question is, we talked about these tablets and what the status of those and what that looks like.
Trustee Taylor, Trustee Sue, that's coming up next.
Yeah, foreshadowing.
You did a great job of foreshadowing that.
You're welcome. Let's move on.
Yeah, before we do that, I have one slide before that I want to talk a little bit about, just to give some information. We've talked a lot about the driver information. There's a lot on this page, but I want to just highlight on the right-hand side is really the key piece that I want to look at. First Students has done a really good job of being able to recruit and retain some of their drivers, which is part of our mission statement for the district as well. We have 8 drivers that are ready to come in. I know that one of the questions we have is how many out-of-town drivers do we have? We currently have 7. We have been systematically, if you recall, the last time we visited, we were at 15. And so that number has been dropping quickly and rapidly due to the recruitment and training of drivers through First Students. One of the challenges that we have had is that a state tester, and that's from the Idaho Transportation Department, identifies how many testers are available per region. One tester can only test 2 drivers at a time. And so there's been some challenges on getting testers to test the drivers who are ready to move in to acquire their CDL. So we've been at somewhat of the mercy of these testers for various reasons. First Students has been doing and working to find options to navigate the obstacles that we have found, which include traveling or having our drivers going outside of our local area to look for testers who are not close in proximity, to also be tested to receive their license so that they can come back and be a full participant as a CDL bus driver. So that's one of the challenges that we have been dealing with, but have been trying to find solutions and have found some solutions. You'll look at the testing dates. We have more coming online. We'd love to, they're working on trying to expedite this and find different pathways around it. But I just wanted to identify that is why we are still looking at those out-of-town drivers. We have them coming. They're there. We're pulling them in as fast as we can so that we can have our full force from the local area.
They're going to be gone in 3 weeks.
They are.
And sorry, I know that BTW does not mean by the way in
yes,
this
it does.
context.
Yeah.
So what?
So
Okay.
behind the wheel is the
Okay.
acronym.
Thank you.
So that is what it means behind the wheel. So there's 2 types of trainings. And again, I'll make sure that when I look over at our cohorts from First Students that I do this accurately. There's 2 major components to the training. It's about a 6-week course, roughly, depending on some things. But there's a skills test, which is there's skills that they have to learn. So there's a classroom component to it that they have to learn. And they learn the rationale behind it. They learn what they need to do, what they need to be looking for. And then you have the component where they're actually, like driver's training behind the wheel, getting the hours of experience in a bus, doing several different very specific actions while they're in the bus, at the same time looking for the safety of students. So there's a lot of things that go into this. It's not a fast process. It's not something where I could come in tomorrow, sign up, and walk away in 2 days
Well,
with a
and
certification.
It shouldn't be a fast process.
Correct.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Correct. So it does take some time for that to happen, but we wanted you to see the progression of where we're at as far as the in-town drivers for our fleet and what that looks like. There is any organization, there's a little bit, and I think Mr. Newsom spoke to this last time, is that there are times where there is some attrition for various reasons. And so it is going to be an ongoing cycle of training that needs to take place.
Trustee Sue.
Yes, the out-of-town drivers is First Student passing on the cost of the hotels, per diem, stuff like that, or are we just paying strictly for the driver?
Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Sue, there was an arrangement that we had that First Students carried the first $50,000 of those costs. And then after that, we started to pick up that because we needed them to be able to drive our buses. That's why we have been monitoring this. They have as well. They've been very good about trying to get that number down. As you can see, our numbers and the recruitment is there. It's our major obstacle right now is the amount of testers available for us to get people through the path, through the testing at the state level.
Vice Chair Kirkman, Trustee Sue, yes. The answer is yes.
Yep.
We're paying for all of those costs while we have out-of-town drivers.
So on that, do we know how much over 50,000 it is?
We did get our first one, and I believe Dr. Russell had passed that information on to the board. I believe the first amount was around $60,000 was our first distribution.
Vice Chair Kirkman, that was sent out. I think it was the total was around 118,000. When you minus that 50,000, it was around 70,000 that we were over for that first
6 week
4 or
block,
5
yeah.
weeks, 6 weeks, something in there. I'll pull that up and get that number for you.
And again, as we receive our incoming bills, we'll be able to articulate that a little bit more. We've
Sure.
only had that
one time.
That one time. And Trustee Kirkman, that just to reiterate, that is not uncommon as far as the billing practices, because they have to finish, do an evaluation,
Totally
and send
get
it to us. So it's totally within inside the window. Sometimes that we hear, hey, we're middle of October. How come you don't have these other bills? But that's within a normal time slot right now.
So this is ending, these guys will be, but the out-of-town drivers will be gone in 3 weeks. When does the next bill come for the per diem and stuff?
Vice Chair Kirkman, we should see it anytime,
Okay.
probably within the next week or two. We'll see it.
We don't need to get into
Anytime soon.
details like that. I just,
Yeah.
But
But Vice Chair Kirkman, I did find it for September. The total cost was 118,000. You take away the $50,000 credit, it was 68,000 that district paid for that first month.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
And obviously, these are not ongoing costs. These are just temporary startup costs.
And then I have a question about the numbers listed on the other side, so the driver counts and stuff. I don't want to steal your thunder if you're going to go into that. Were you going to? Or?
No,
This is
Okay,
it.
This is
okay,
it. Go
okay.
for
So
it. I'm
please explain to me the over short for the 115% of driver total. Is this so that you can have subs available? What happens to the 15%, 100% of drivers are able-bodied and out driving?
Yeah, Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz, this is contractual that we put into the contract. It's very typical what you see in any of the busing contracts. It is for that case that you have backup drivers in the event that there are people who call out with sicknesses for whatever reason. That 15% is our backup drivers. They also, part of that can be those that are also doing our activities during the day as well, because you do have those, particularly right now, we have our fifth graders that are attending Starbase. And so when they have the activities during the day, these are also drivers that would help offset those, so we're not pulling the drivers from routes off.
Okay, so, but again, I guess, I don't know. I'm just curious. I suppose I don't have to know, but what happens to those drivers if there's not an extra activity or there's not somebody sick? Are they at the home base or?
Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz, I'm more than happy to get some more information on that, but the reality is we're using them every day right now.
Okay.
Just when you look at the 15%, you have people who are out in no organization. Have well, I can speak for the schools and any organization I've been with, you have 100% attendance.
Okay.
And so I think, again, that's one of those things, those drivers are being utilized every day in different capacities. But I can get a better answer and I can come back to it. But that would be my initial reaction just from the business model.
Okay, and then at the bottom where it has aids in training testing and then the drivers in training testing. And I'm assuming that like the skills behind the wheel training, those are the drivers who have completed that portion. So they're done with everything. And that's 14 of the 23 drivers in total in training currently.
Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz. So you have 14 drivers that are still in that process. We have 8 that are completed and waiting for their final testing. So if you look at that skills behind the wheel, I think you're looking at the drivers in training / testing,
Yeah.
and their third line below that, those 14 are the same 14 that I mentioned on the other side. They're getting ready to get to their ability to test. So we have more drivers that are coming that would be able to get their CDL license. So we
Okay,
have
so
8
they're-
that are ready to test for their CDL. We have 14 more that are in the hopper of
Okay.
learning the skills to be able to get to that point where they can test.
Okay, and then the aids in training testing, there, it says 2.
Yes, they're 2 different categories.
Okay, and then the apps this week, those are applicants or apps submitted this week, or apps they learned this week, or?
Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz, those are people who applied this week.
Okay.
So we wanted to show you the flow and the recruitment process that First Student has been doing to ensure that we had the appropriate amount of drivers. And by all accounts, we're very, very healthy when we look at our driver pool in comparison to some of our neighbors. We have a very healthy pool. First Students has done a really good job as far as their recruitment process. We recognize that they've done that by taking care of their employees as well through that process and doing the adequate training that they need to do for us.
And then another, just because I'm curious, the aids route, I'm assuming those are the people who are there to assist with like the preschool buses or the sped buses. Are they also cross-trained to be drivers so that they could, or it's very specific, ne'er the two shall meet?
So Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Benz, the answer is kind of a between. It depends
Okay.
on the person who is in that position. If they have a desire to become a driver, then they could still be working as a monitor while working on their skills to become a CDL driver's license. Or that's all I want. I just want to be a monitor.
Okay.
So they have that flexibility to choose with inside the organization what position that they want.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
All right. One last screen we'll give you. So hopefully we've covered enough and we'll take more questions. But this too, Trustee Sue, this is the timeline for our technology that I wanted to just review with you. First is the first view. Now, I'm going to try to make sure I explain each one of these titles because it's the title of the technology. First view has a couple components to it. One, it is the dashboard for the district that contains a lot of the information that is a very visual representation of where all the buses are, their time slots, where are they hitting their routes. That's that information that it's a dashboard for the district. The other component of it is the parent app that will tell the parent how close to the stop for GPS. That's the other piece to this this component. We have starting this upcoming week, this week and next week, we will be doing our preliminary components of organizing that and putting it together. We are going to pilot it towards the end of this month with I think we've talked about 3 schools. To make sure that all the technology is working appropriately before we send it out, we'll be using parent pockets as well through those schools with a full anticipated rollout at mid-November. We're pushing that, but we're also trying to be realistic. When I'm working with First Students, I promise you I'm pushing this as hard as I can. You can look at them and notice that I am relentless on trying to change these dates and push it sooner. They start every meeting knowing that we know you want it sooner, and I keep saying, okay, so what's the new date? So we are pushing that as hard as we can, but also want to be effective in the rollout process. So this, we do feel comfortable. First Students feels comfortable. I'm still pushing, so I won't say I feel comfortable because I want it to earlier. But you will see this coming here shortly as far as the first view and the parent app. So that's the first piece on number 1. Number 2, the tablets, which we've talked a lot about. There's a multi-purpose for the tablets. One, there is a component that is the employee component of the tablet where they do their checking in, where they do their walks through the bus, they identify if there's anything wrong with the bus, they do all that work on the tablets. That training has taken place, and the bus drivers now have that in their hands, and that's been rolled out through First Students. The second component to that we've talked a lot about is the turn-by-turn piece. We are going to start piloting 5 routes within the next 2 weeks. Part of the reason why we want to do the pilot is in any component where we're having technology talk to each other, we want to make sure that there is not some inaccuracies that are taking place in a full rollout. So we are going to be starting that partial rollout of 5 routes. We'll do that at the end of this month. The next component is they're having a virtual training for all of the drivers in December. And our full rollout for the rest of the buses is we're looking at that middle of January, middle to end of January is a full rollout for the turn-by-turn piece. Now, the third part to that is the RFID, which is part 4 down there. So I'm going to jump 3 if I can and go to 4, which is that part where we've talked about the cards that the students would check in so that parents could see if their student checked in the bus and checked off the bus. That process is a mid-December, with most likely a rollout to February, the beginning of February, with training and installation of the RFID readers. There's a different component that is not associated to the tablet that they have to be able to check in and check out. Part of that also is for us to be able to get a good system into place for how to distribute the RFID cards. We're working on that piece as well. I do think that's an aggressive time frame, but also one that I do not want to roll out poorly. If we get a bad taste of it, the proficiency of students wanting to use it diminishes. We are going to focus on elementary this first iteration. Our focus is going to be with our younger kids. So that is in connection with the tablets. The last piece is what's called First Act, and this is also on the tablets, but it is dealing with student discipline, how the bus driver would report discipline needs or concerns or citations, the old word of bus citations. This is an electronic version of what used to be called the bus citation system. I've had a pilot team of administrators that we've already walked through and identified, and Nampa school districtized it, if that makes sense. We put all the pieces that we need to do that were pertinent to our handbooks, our policies and procedures. We already walked through that piece and made sure that the software was speaking Nampa's language for Nampa's district. So that part has been completed. The bus drivers have been trained. We're just now needing to train the rest of the administrators, which we have that planned for our next Friday. I'm in the process of planning that for the rest of the administrators on the 25th. So that's where we'll be coming, and we'll start right after that on the 28th. That one's going to be a quicker rollout just because of where we are progression-wise.
Mr. Stauffer, on the first view, with the transportation department, do you anticipate an incredibly high number of calls that might be coming in after that rolls out?
Vice Chair Kirkman, yeah.
We didn't
I think we
anticipate
do.
all that with the.
I think both of us do. I think not only just our transportation department,
Yeah.
but for students as well. We
I
anticipate
can't get my
some
app to
calling.
work, or I can't, that kind of.
Yeah, and we do anticipate some of those things, and those are going to be natural as we need to work through it. That's why we want to do the pilots.
Yeah.
To see what type of rollout it does look like. And then we can predict and project a little bit more of what that looks like. They do have a lot of information because this isn't their first student's first rodeo with this. So we do have multiple different districts and like districts that we have been able to pull some information from, pull how they've done their training, pull how they've reached out to parents. And so there's going to be some purpose intentionality that's not just us that are saying, hey, let's do it this way. But there has been a process that has been vetted through first students through their repetition of doing this.
Good, because this is going to be the first time for parents, and you might want to get that calling center on standby just in case.
Vice Chair Kirkman, let's hope not, because it is an app, and so hopefully we have some app savvy components, but duly understand that we know that we need to be prepared to help out with that.
And on number 4 there, the RFID, I can anticipate. I know you go through some graduated rollout, if you will, but especially in the elementary schools, those kids, if they're scanning their card on there, that's just going to add more time. And so, it's just those little things that I know you guys have thought about this, but just anticipating down the road, all that. Anyways, that's really all the questions. I love how this is set up. And when you talked about the bus citations, it reminded me of those paper ones you used to get all the time. Not me, but
If I may.
yeah, Trustee Sue.
I want to applaud you and Rebecca and the first student team. It was rough, and it's gotten a lot better. And there was at one point, even in my children's school, where I started communicating with you directly, going, "Hey, why is this bus late every day?" and you've done a great job of fixing it. And, you know, I don't think we see the volume of complaints anymore. So I applaud you. Great job.
And a good team.
Yeah, it's been a while since I got an email. Anyways, thank you. Trustee Benz, any questions?
No, this is great progress.
Yeah, it's great.
Great progress.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep hammering on those timelines, okay?
Yeah, that's why they're wearing their protective vests today.
I think you need to stay up here for the next one.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Russell,
Yeah,
facilities update.
Vice Chair Kirkman, trustees, facilities update. Mr. Stoffer, real quick, just kind of where we are.
Yes, we do have other things going on in the district.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Vice Chair Kirkman, Board of Trustees, just a quick update. As we're finalizing our project with the field turf and and the tracks and the tennis courts. There's a few little punch list items that we're finishing up this week and next week. But again, just really appreciative of the community and their support for these facilities. We do now have facilities that are something that we are very, very proud of. And our kids are proud of them. It's actually been, it's been fun to have those comments. And I guess I'll just leave it at that because it is neat to see kids coming off and being very excited. We also, as a side note to that, because of our facilities and the condition that they're currently at, we now have had some other communities, schools that are reaching out to us and renting the fields to play games on. We've had some across the state that have kind of come together and met and played on our fields. We also had the opportunity this next week to house one of the state soccer tournaments just because of some of the other fields were not in a condition. So they reached out to us. And so we now are hosting state and district activities. And that's really one of the things that we wanted to do, to just bring people to Nampa to see what great community it is. So again, I know we could probably talk on it along. It is a good point for us, but we do have a few little punch list items that we have been taking care of. We should be completed within the next couple of weeks. There is one component to the Columbia track that we will be holding on to. In their analysis of the track, there are some deficiencies there that we're going to hold out a retainer. They have done some work on it, but they're going to need to take it all the way down and scrape it all the way down to the base and redo it. Timing of the season does not allow us to do it right now because of the weather. They cannot put new tracks down when it gets under 60 degrees.
Can they use it?
They're totally 100% usable. It is in condition. They can run on it. There's nothing impeding it to have any issues with it. But they, the company which we're working with did not feel comfortable leaving it in that position. So they came to us and said, hey, this is what we want to do. Here's what we suggest. We're going to ask you to keep out the percentage of what that track would be. We'll hold on to that. We're going to come back. They made it completely usable for this next season. But after the season, in that first part of May, we will be first on their docket. They're going to take it all the way down and then rebuild it all the way back up.
Sure.
And no additional costs to the district.
Was it just installed? Was it just a rush job kind of?
No,
it
it was something that they found when they started working on it. There were some things that came to light that they couldn't see until they started uncovering part of it and fixing it. And as they did the analysis, they came back to us and said, "Hey, it's not. It is usable." But we don't feel good leaving it in this shape.
Yeah, it's a reputation.
I again really appreciate them being very open and honest about it. They could have patched it and walked away, or done the covering and done all those things. And they said that it would not have been the right product. They wanted to stand by it, so they came with a solution. So we will be seeing the track being completely replaced at Columbia, even beyond the repairs that were done this year.
Cool.
Question, you said that we are hosting other schools, state functions, etc. Is that a gesture of goodwill to the community, or is this also helping to support our athletic programs?
Vice Chair Kirkman's Trustee Benz, I think there's a little bit of both. Yes, it does have a financial gain for us. There is a financial gain. Concessions for our sports products, our sport teams, they get to gain a little bit more off of selling additional games. We don't get the money from tickets, but that doesn't matter. That's in any state. Whoever hosts doesn't get that. The state gets it. But these other ones that want to come in and utilize our site, they pay for the services to be able to use it too. Now, so it has been what we anticipated or hoped for, that we would have another opportunity to do some revenue generating resources for our programs.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Taylor and Trustee Benz, it's a good thing for the community. When you have a state tournament, you got folks that travel from all over the state. You got grandma, grandpa come. You got relatives that come to these tournaments. They stay. They eat at our restaurants. It helps the community. So it's a really nice thing that we're able to host those things.
And maybe a slight little plug there, Dr. Russell, as well, is one of the other things that we did this year is we updated our capacity to broadcast the games on the field. So we have the huddle program. And so we can also sell those for those parents that can't come, the grandma and grandpa that can't make it or might be in another state. They can buy a normal ticket and they can have access to the video and watch the game.
Now, I remember when Bulldog Bowl was, I remember, that's how, it was just a couple of years ago when Bulldog Bowl was built. It kind of had the same effect. Kind of had the same effect in the community. It was something that really the community rallied around because it was new, it was big, it was bold, and it drew people from the Treasure Valley to want to play in Nampa because of that stadium. So I love it. It's elevated athletics. It's elevated our schools. It's just elevated the district. So much appreciated. Great field. And those pictures just look nice.
Pristine. Vice Chair Kirkman, just one other thing, just wanted to make sure I also updated you on the Snake River remodel progress. That has begun. I have my first major meeting to go with the updates next Wednesday. So the only information I have for you right now is they've started the painting. They're also starting some of the demolition that is required per the plans that you approved before. So I'll have a little bit more information after our next meeting in next Wednesday.
So I'm sorry.
Trustee Benz.
No, it's okay. Go on ahead.
So we don't anticipate on Gateways occupying that space until later than the January timeframe we talked about, or I'm sorry, Thanksgiving?
So Vice Chair Kirkman and Trustee Sue, we were hoping to get them in over Christmas break. Currently, the projected timeframe is January 17th for substantial completion. So we're about 2 weeks behind, and that was due to various reasons that we talked about. So it was just the permitting, the planning, and just getting through all the red tape. There was more revisions on this one just because of the type of facility we needed to create.
There's no asbestos in that school.
Vice Chair Kirkman, the good news is it was built in the 90s.
And this is the last outstanding remodel that was based on the reshuffling in the schools, correct?
Vice Chair Kirkman, Trustee Benz, that's correct. This is our last major one. There are some subtle ones that we're doing just because of size, but those are little ones that are handled more so in district. But yeah, this is the last major one.
Thank you.
So any discussion about, I've emailed you this question, so I'll bring it up in board meeting, but any discussion on the Centennial, Sunny Ridge, Lincoln, any of those vacant buildings?
Yeah, Vice Chair Kirkman,
I'll put vacant in quotes.
That's a great
air
question.
quotes.
That's a great question. We've had several inquiries. One of the things that we will need to do as a board is get direction from the board of where you would like us as administrators to go and acquire information for the board to consider. That will probably be something that we will discuss in November. That's kind of our time frame that we wanted to get through this piece, but in November, we tentatively have marked to visit with the board and get instruction from the board on which direction and what information you would like us to inquire to bring back so that you have good information to make decisions based off of that.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Next on the agenda then is enrollment, average daily attendance. Dr. Russell.
Vice Chair Kirkman, trustees, before you tonight in the enrollment report, I do need to apologize. It was not in the board packet during our deadline. That is something that we missed. But I just wanted Mr. Keith to pull it up here. You'll see the report very similar to what you see most months. Nothing substantial to report from that. We have dropped, I think, about 20 kids since we started school, but still, again, above projections where we were. Our buildings, again, based on the reboundary process, are in a very nice spot. A few high spots, Lone Star is a little high, Reagan is a little high, but other than that, we're sitting pretty well. Happy to answer any questions, but That's basically our enrollment report where we're at.
Thank you.
Questions, trustees?
No.
All right, thank you, Dr. Russell. And then finance treasurer report.
Vice Chair Kirkman and trustees, Mr. Dewey here, just share some information about our audit and when we'll be looking that over, and then just kind of give us some updates where we are financially.
Run the video.
I almost did it again. It's really good. All right, we got to keep going. Right. Actually, audit's completed, at least the testing's completed. Auditors are doing the last little final checks. We're still getting emails back and forth from the auditors about some cleanups, things that they're doing. The plan is that we are having a special board meeting on the 4th. And the reason for that is for you guys to approve the audit. We have it in by the 10th deadline, so we get paid our November 10th payment. So it's perfect timing. And so we're working through that right now. So I appreciate
November
that.
4th.
Yep, it's a Monday, and hopefully that'll go real quick. They're going to give a presentation. There's one other thing there's a fly or something in here. One other thing we've added to that agenda, but other than that, especially the audit, it's going really well. So go to the next one. And this year's, I know I said this is almost the exact slide as last month because nothing's really changed. This first, remember our average daily attendance is based on these first 10 weeks or whatever first. And so until November 7th, we won't even know really what our numbers are. Cody's group is actually working on a great a unit projection tool that is pretty close to projecting about where we're at. They're still working on it to be able to give me some better numbers, but really it's tough, and it makes it hard to believe that I wouldn't know what it is until at least December. That's truly the case around here. We do kind of have an estimate because we know where our enrollment is. We know what our attendance percentage is, and we know it in comparison to last year. So it's not like we're way off and thinking that. And the salary average pay and all that kind of stuff, we're sending it to. And so I'll start getting some of those preliminary reports by next month. At this point in time, I don't have anything to worry about at all. But if I do something, we'll work on it pretty quick. So.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it. I told you,
Okay,
2
then.
slides.
All right, Dr. Russell, superintendent report.
Yeah, Vice Chair Kirkman, trustees, just for the superintendent's report, was going to ask Director Gomez to come up and just share where we are with our English language arts curriculum adoption. We had our first meeting and wanted to just kind of share with the trustees kind of where that process is and kind of what the next steps is for that committee.
Great.
Taylor, can you pull up this slide again, please? Oh. Actually, I think it's just one slide, so I just probably will look at that. So the ELA Adoption Committee met on September 24th. They reviewed the homework, which was reviewing the standards and a couple of different readings that we gave them to help build their knowledge. We began the process of screening novels. We received 176 novels from parents and the community and our teachers. We did opt to allow or to follow past practice and allow for committee members to bring forth some more novels. And so we opened up a survey for them to do that. And there was 65 additional ones. We are trying to have a balance of texts that are engaging for our students, but also trying to increase the level of rigor and lexile that they're reading. And so because they wanted to look at additional novels that evening, they started with selecting 2. And so right now they're in the process of reading those 2 novels and using the rubric that they helped create to vet those novels. And so then we'll meet again on November 7th here at the district office to discuss their ratings, screen additional novels, and then select more to vet. Do you have any questions so far on that?
The novels, those won't be affected by the library the materials statute.
Chair,
They'd be part of the curriculum.
Vice Chair Kirkman, a very good question. It's not by that statute. There is in the parental rights policy, I'll have to pull it off from my head, there is a process to challenge the curriculum. If there is concerns about any of the books that are selected in there, we do have that policy about how we would go through that. So there's still an opportunity for folks if there is that concern to be able to challenge that, but it would not be through that library bill.
And did everybody on the committee show up for the first meeting?
No.
Can we get names of those who didn't? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
We have the one
No,
that we
that's
didn't
okay,
realize.
don't
Okay,
worry.
I did do makeup sessions. So, and we are going to start communicating through Parent Square because I think our system doesn't like me blind carbon copying
Oh,
external emails. And so
Hmm.
we made it up and we got everybody caught up.
great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's like herding cats sometimes. Okay. Is that in the superintendent report?
Vice Chair Kirkman, that is all we have for tonight.
Okay, all right. We are going to quickly ask if there's any questions. Since there's no questions, we're going to move to the next possible agenda item. See how I move through this?
I have already added vacant school buildings and empowering parents to protect kids in the digital age.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to add that we've talked about?
No, but I do have a question
No, there were no, we already had that.
just there were a couple pieces of information that came to us this week via email from parents that went to the board. Do we need to address any of
Like those
those?
letters about the books?
And the other medical letter, do we need to do anything? Do we need to take any action on any of those things?
Was that about the screen time?
Yeah.
Yeah, Vice Chair Kirkman, trustees, that has been already dealt with.
Okay.
School had reached out to parents, has communicated with his parents. They had a meeting. They did an audit within the classroom. Students doing well. Have had no concerns since that time. So nothing there. The books is something that I'm happy to, if we need to have that as an agenda item to discuss in the future, we can do that.
Yeah, that was kind of out of the
was-
blue. I didn't know where that, unless it
Yeah.
had something to do with the curriculum committee with the books. No, I wondered, I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the context because I must have missed the action that we recently took to
No, you
to
didn't miss
change anything.
anything.
But, and I didn't see any specific titles that they wanted reintroduced. So I wasn't sure if we needed to.
We can respond to the email, but there's nothing there. I
Those
mean,
are physical letters though.
Yeah, there was no,
If they have physically mailed, so I scanned them in,
Uh-huh.
and I think that we would direct Superintendent Russell to reach out
Okay,
if needed.
and just maybe find out what the context of the,
Yeah.
we want to make sure we respond to them, but yeah, as far as any action items that were taken, there's been nothing.
okay.
Nothing since last year and year
Okay.
before.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Kirkman, I move that we move to executive session per Idaho Code 74206 1B and D. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public school officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student. D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code.
Okay, so it's been seconded. Before roll call is Chair Taylor still on phone?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Roll call?
Chair Taylor? Trustee Kirkman?
Aye.
Trustee Sue?
Aye.
Trustee Vivens?
Aye.
Okay, we will move into executive session.